So, well, it is the first panel discussion, so the Towards Open Citizen Innovator. So we have amazing panelists. So we have the Nicolas Guilbert. So the first panelist is the Franco-Danish school. So he is from Copenhagen, Denmark. And so why now is time for open science? Alice Gilbert will be the moderator, and so well, she is from Copenhagen, Denmark, and her affiliation is right STEM. So well, you can start.
Thanks. So so it was actually a stroke of fate, perhaps, or a stroke of luck, but open innovation is probably my main interest in the world, and so I'm super happy to step in as a panelist here. So I've been working with open source since the 90s. I'm an educated engineer, mainly IT, and I'm now a developer and a mathematician. And I think, well, that openness in innovation sort of has shown that it's the way to go today. Open source is everywhere. If you talk IT, in every phone today, at least all the Android phones, you have open source. In almost all the servers on the internet, in everything that's about IoT, you have a Linux kernel or an Arduino hardware and open source hardware running. So I think that open source has definitely won today, and in where it usually in where it traditionally comes from in IT. In biology, I think it's more complicated. Just a few words about my involvement in biology. Let's track back 10 years, where my wife and I decided to start a school. So I'm an engineer, but I'm also running a school that is very much about innovation. And we teach the kids, and it's a very special school where the kids are allowed to do what they want to do. And that might often sound like a weird approach to teaching, but it has turned out to be very efficient. When people are motivated and understand why they do what they do, it's they just are much more efficient. And when it comes to kids, they just learn in a much more efficient way. In one of the earlier chats, I saw in the chat that someone mentioned that teaching is about context, and that is very much, I completely agree with that. Context is everything, and once you are able to create the right context and create the right questions with the kids, you just allow them to learn at a pace that is much more suitable for them. You allow them to place the new knowledge in a context, and it's very efficient, and most of all, well, it's very securing, but just as important, it very much allows them to create their own ideas and drive their own projects and keep them motivated and manage their motivation on the long term. And as David said in one of the earlier talks, what is so difficult in these grassroots organizations that the bio community also is to keep the motivation on the long term. How do you make it a stable organization over decades? I mean, big pharma and big corporations work in a different way. They're stable because they have, revenue streams. They have marketing pumps, and I see in the chat here they have patents. They have structures in place to make them stable over time. We don't have that, so we need to come up with other mechanisms to do that. And so my involvement in biology is relatively new. It came, so it's, if we fast forward the school to 2 years ago, by coincidence, we got in contact with Chanel, also known as Little Pink Maker, and who is the one who introduced us to the Bio Community Summit. Where we are going now is that we, through this symbiotic relationship, I'm actually in Nels makerspace right now. Through this symbiotic relationship, we want to get the kids involved and try and find out how young biohackers can you actually produce. And if we talk stability over, on the long term, I think that is a key. Actually, the key will be that research not only is for scientists and people with PhDs in glorious universities. I think science should be, perhaps most of all, should be for kids, for teachers, for schools, and in my opinion, the reason why so I'm attending the BioSummit this year is I think it's a fantastic concept you are having here. I also followed the fellowship program on the sideline, and to me, I must say, it looks like a stroke of genius. This idea of enabling change makers in a systematic way. So you have these cohorts of 36 fellows, new fellows every year that are trained to network. They are trained to tell their narrative in a convincing way. They're trained to act as leaders in their groups. That is just, yeah. I was very impressed, I must say, by what the bio community, the global bio community has done until now. So congratulations with that. And yeah, and one of the discussions I'm very interested in is how do we reach out to, how do we get the young ones involved, the kids, the teachers, also noting that schools are sort of difficult to get into because people leave schools all the time. It's very hard to build up a lasting relationship because the kids basically leave. And so you need to liaise with the teachers basically. And my great question is, how can we get that going?
Amazing, amazing. So, well, we move to Vittorio. You are there, Vittorio? Hey, Vittorio, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. Okay, may I go next because I'm having a still problem with the computer. Is that possible? I need 2-3 minutes.
Okay, okay.
Is that a problem? Because there is
No.
the computer is hanging. I'm working in the task manager because it's not my computer. I'm
no
sorry.
worries.
Yeah. Okay.
No worries. Alix, do you have any questions to our first panelists?
Well, I see that in the chat, a question was asked to Nicolas. Also, I just want to give a huge shout out to Nicolas for stepping up after one of our panelists canceled last minute. All of what he just told you was complete improvisation. So big shout out to you, Nicolas. So yes, the question was from Basil was, so how do you effectively enable teachers to motivate children getting started with science? Do you have any words on that, Nicolas?
So thanks, Alex. So it's just one comment. It's improvised, but it's something I have been talking about many times before. So yeah. So how do we effectively enable teachers? The idea that strikes me is, so I'd say, inspired by what I've seen with the BioSummit here, like the very tangible thing we could do would be to try and get teachers involved in the BioSummit. I think, and I'll ask at least the two of our teachers here at the school to participate next year for sure. And I think actually if we sort of can get this, plant these seeds and get them and you know, empower them to be these enablers of change. My hope would be that you can gradually spread it from one group of teachers to the next, create the narratives, and have it grow exponentially. So organically, but exponentially. If that is feasible, I don't know, but I think it would be worth a try. I'm very optimistic after having seen what has happened until now.
Amazing, great. So Vittorio, are you ready? Can you present or?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, amazing. You just go right ahead and present.
Yeah. Just a second. I try to.
Well, people, you know, the Bio Summit is in real time, and
Yeah, no, it's that
it is normal.
I organized.
It is,
yeah, sorry. Go ahead. I interrupted you.
no worries. So, well,
Yeah.
we are in real time, and so
yeah, I was saying that I had unfortunately a series of problems because family-related problems. A cousin of mine committed suicide, and and so also I organized the European panel today from Napoli Science Center. So it's today is very tough. So that's what I mean. It's a little bit stressful.
I got it. No worries.
Yeah. Okay, so I this should work now. I'll try. Yeah. Can you see my screen now?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just a second. Install again. Sorry. Okay, this is about me. Who am I? I did a PhD on I'm not going to read this. No, don't worry, just some notes. This is my profile. I did a PhD on community bio, mainly on European communities. That's why I organized that specific panel today. And I have a hybrid, so-called hybrid profile. I mean that I'm both. I work at these things on these things from a technical and scientific point of view, as well as from a social sciences related perspective. And my PhD was consistently with all I said before. My PhD was adopted a methodology called action research. It's you do field research, you also participate in what you study, and I was particularly interested in what are called emancipatory practices. In our case, I was particularly interested in projects, community bio-related projects, lowering entry barriers to research, development, education, and so on. In the following, let's call them slides. It's a series of pictures. So sorry, I couldn't do more. I will shortly present case studies or projects that I found interesting from the mentioned points of view. So this is some kind of definition of emancipatory social science. It's I'm not going to delve into it. It's the production of knowledge for the elimination of oppression, the creation of the condition for human flourishing. I will leave this somewhere else for the interested people to read, more calmly with And yeah, it's like the methodology with which I conducted my research. And one of the keywords I love most is creating working alternatives. In academic speech, it is translated to envisioning viable alternatives. So it's really, and so let's move to the more practical part. It's like these are a series of projects that inspired me. I don't know, perhaps most of them will be known to you. Public Lab, it's it's an American organization, US based, and I was particularly interested in their work with tools because one of the project, my action research project, I was particularly focused on monitoring and detection tools, and I worked a little bit on spectrophotometers, because in my region, in Campania, there is a dramatic problem with illegal toxic waste disposal. So it's and I made use of their shared knowledge. So also Homo sapiens is another European group, mostly based in between, I think, Switzerland and Germany. It's open soil research also. So it's it is really related to the problem of toxic waste disposal. Really useful. Yeah, this is not the right order. This is a open space. They are also these are in South Sudan. I was in direct contact with them through Facebook, because unfortunately I couldn't go there because of the restrictions in the budget, which allowed only research missions to Europe, basically. So these people are in South Sudan, and as you say, it's they use innovation as a means of empowerment. That they create kits like because in South Sudan, they up to 60% of the people has not access to clean water. So that's what we are talking about. So water purification kits and really basic needs. And so this is, I don't know if you are familiar with this, I think Berlin-based makerspace. This is a crisis response makerspace, German. This is the Life Sensor. It's an open source project of for something like visualization, low cost open source visualization of human vital parameters. So it's hardware and software, and it is really very, very important when there is no other chance in war zones, and I think you get the idea. So I was also inspired by the spirit of the Open Insular Foundation, which I think I don't need to present because they were also in the Anthony DeFranco was originally also from Napoli, so I talked to him also in Neapolitan, apart from in English. And yeah, I think it's they took their destiny in their own hands because of the problem of really accessing insulin in a cheap way. So, and this
amazing, Vittorio.
These are my projects. I have to. Do I have to wrap up? It's yeah.
So yeah.
Okay.
Well,
these are two of my own projects, open rehabilitation prototypes. This is a series of tools of for physically disabled children to learn and write. It was used also by some Colombian groups to lower entry barriers to therapeutic practice. And this is the last one. It's the project on open distributed environmental monitoring network. This is also a project of mine, and this is a prototype for the detection of mutagens in food, water, and soil, and also air. But it is still we are still talking about prototypes. We were thinking of using some kind of microbes which are known to alter their behavior when mutagens are present. And this project, I would like to add as a final remark, won EU funding of 150,000 euros, but then I had to give up this funding because the pandemic began shortly afterwards, and the business model, so to speak, was not sustainable anymore. So this is it. Okay.
Amazing, Vittorio. Amazing. Well, let's start with the questions or the audience or to all panelists. Well, Alix.
Yes, all right. So guys, don't be shy. Just put a bunch of questions in the chat. Remember, no questions are stupid. There are only good questions, or yeah, no silly questions. But anyways, I have a question for you guys. So in the software world, there are these concepts such as versioning and testing that have revolutionized the software industry, which basically means that you can gradually improve the code base and others can easily reproduce your results. Would it be possible to copy those open source patterns in biotechnology? Yeah, any of you can answer. Oh, both of you, just.
Okay, I'll take it, Vittorio, unless you insist.
No.
Okay. To me, it seems that the patterns are the same. It's biology is fundamentally code, right? When you program your genetic sequences, you are basically you have a long string, a long piece of code, and you cut it up, and you insert new sequences into it. It seems to me that the fundamental elements are completely the same, but also that where the software freedom movement started in the early 80s, it's only recently beginning to pick up in the biotech communities. And there's this whole legacy of that there used to be in the software industry too, with very large corporations totally dominating the market and using their big legal departments to create defensive patterns. So these defensive patterns are not about patenting new technology. So what patents used to be about was that if a smart inventor had invented something, you really wanted that person to give it back to to give it to society in exchange of a certain exclusivity over for a certain time. What it has become is that these very large legal departments make defensive patents in order to prevent other companies from actually innovating. So it's become completely perverted. And what has happened in the open source world is that you can run gigantic systems. You can do basically everything you want with open source code without being annoyed by patents. And these very mature licenses are securing your freedom to do that. It's really been done in a very smart way. Actually, originally done by MIT. So it seems that MIT and Boston are cities of freedom and justice somehow. Very inspiring. But I also think that the biotech sector has, 10, 15, are lagging behind 10, 15 years before this hacker culture, basically, that was at MIT and that spread to the rest of the world, creating the open source movement. Before this hacker culture really gets traction in the bio world. And again, I mean, thumbs up to to this event here, because that's completely what it's about. So I think they are transferable, and I think it's just a question of time and commitment and passionate hackers to achieve it. And that's the role we should be playing.
Vittorio, you want to say anything?
Yeah, I was just looking up a reference because it's this question is being debated also in the European community. Sorry, because I'm also struggling with the computer at the same time. And there was multiple meetings were held with this topic for the question of the so-called, if I recall correctly, MTA, material transfer agreements. And there was an interesting effort for a so-called Biocommons white paper by a European community bioactivist, which was also an advisor to the German government. His name is Rüdiger Treuck. And the name of this document is the Biocommons white paper. I was trying to look it up, but the computer is not responding very quickly. So it's it was just what I was thinking about these kind of issues. Yeah, I will post it into the chat as soon as as the program responds. so that's all I can give you right now. Yeah, I can only see the Windows desktop screen right now. I can see you to give you an idea of how I'm taking part in this session.
So. Okay, no worries. So thank you, our panelists. This will be the panel. This was the panel discussion related to how to engage our communities to open science. So we note that what is the important, what is the impact that the society have to access of science and in general of the scientist communities. And so thank you so much, our panelists, for this amazing conversation. So we need to move the first talk session.
Sofia, may I ask you a question? Are we supposed to leave our materials in the so-called Google Drive participants Google Drive or not? Because I might.
Yeah, sure. So we will put in the document all notes or this panel discussion, and so we'll put any thoughts or any commentaries or our audience. No worries. I will
put it also this Biocommons white paper there then. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much, our panelists, our Alix. So well, we will move to the first talk session. We have amazing speakers.
That's okay. Amazing. Sorry.
So well, we have the first talk sessions, the future tech application. We have the several panelists with the amazing application of the disruptive technologies. So first we have Maciek Piatek. He is from United Kingdom. He will talk about the 3D printing and mycological research. So welcome, Maciek.
Hey guys. Yeah, my name is hard to pronounce, but you can actually pronounce it like magic. It's almost like that. Let me present, start the presentation, and now let me share the screen. Whole desktop. Let me know, can you, sorry. 1 second, guys.
Sofia?
Yes.
Can you
Tell me,
mute?
Vittorio.
Can you mute me because I cannot do it myself?
Okay, sure. So no worries.
I just muted him. Done. Yep.
All right, I'm back. It should work now.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry for that. Can you see my screen, the slides? Awesome, I gotcha. Okay, so I am software consultant, but this year I started, I was interested after watching one YouTube video about fungi as a plastic of the future. So I got into, trying to grow mycelium, grow some kind of mycelium materials. I've been tinkering with 3D printers for a few years. I'm a general geek. And what I want to try to cover is like a few aspects of how you might use 3D printers, how we use the 3D printers and what we want to do with them, kind of in the future to come. So in general, probably you all know about what 3D printing is, but basically just melt plastic and just put it layer by layer. So this is an example of brick that we were trying to grow mycelium in them. It's actually wood filament, so basically 30% wood chips, remaining bits are polylactic acid. There's the whole stack of them. And I've seen like a lot of young people in this meeting. So if you're starting out there, and 3D printing is awesome for you because you can print many lab equipment. For example, here you can see the centrifuge. So I mean, some things are for mycology, but some things are generally applicable for molecular biology. So that's my cover as well. Other examples, those things you can find on Thingiverse or on other like insert tables, places like that. I'm pretty sure you're aware of them. Magnetic stirrer, some kind of simple stuff like just a holder for tubes, pipettes, and I want to highlight the very important aspect I think for the 3D printing to take advantage of it. You got all of those websites where you can download the models, but 3D modeling is something that you really want to focus on, to really take advantage of it. And the software on the right is this is Shaper 3, the application I'm using. And it's very simple. You can actually kind of draw with a pencil. It's available on multi-platforms. It's quite easy. And basically, what I'm trying to say is just it's getting easy, but it's explicitly important where you got those weird combinations of things in your lab, like you want to connect two different things, just don't work. You might find an adapter out of that, but it's pretty hard and you might waste a lot of time. Instead of just using duct tape or trying to glue something together, just grabbing calipers, taking the measurements, you can dry it out. Here you can see this is just a plastic box. It's still air box, something you may want to try to do your sterile experiments in. This is the kind of Pursman laminar flow hood where you can conduct your experiments, inoculations, things like that. Basically, the air doesn't move. And here I took a hole. I wanted to kind of block it out to use this container for different things. And here's an example of model that I created with the previous software. It didn't work the way I wanted to, but it's an example of what you can do. Those kind of ad hoc things that might be a good, something that you might want to do. Here's another approach you might take if you don't want to draw. And software development, you might have a look at OpenSCAD, where you can kind of write the code, like kind of define like a cube, and then difference, have a Boolean operation, like subtract the sphere from it. What's interesting about that is that you can expose parameters, and then you can create a one design, like a nut, for example, and then by changing parameters, you can have different sizes, different variations. And some of the websites are actually taking advantage of it. For example, yeah, there's Sol 75. Also, Thingiverse, as I mentioned previously, is pretty. It's actually taking advantage. If you upload the model in OpenSCAD, you can customize your design, put the different parameters. It's going to generate different sizes, different combinations of the software. Sorry, of the 3D model. On the other side, with actually interacting with mycelium and fungi, in my case, this is the stack of bricks. Here you can see kind of different stages of growth of mycelium. On the right side, here you got some mycelium growth. We actually used I think this low-tech technique where we use recycled recycled paper pellets and inoculated them with blue oysters. You don't have to kind of sterilize the pellets, because they're kind of the process of creating pellets is actually compressing them and putting some temperature. So they're pretty sterile. You can kind of use them low-tech in a kitchen. Another step, you can see kind of mycelial growth covering the plastic. I mean, partially plastic. And in front, the yellow bits, this is the structural things that we wanted to grow. This is basically part of like a blimp shell, because here we're experimenting actually creating blimps out of mycelium. So we have like flying zeppelins, airships. So part of the research is actually heavily look, can we grow the whole structure of our airship with fungi? Here you can see how it's like taking over it and actually branching out. And this is just growing in a plastic container. Sorry, so yeah, here you can see how nicely the branches. Actually, you can probably cut it out and put it on Petri dish and use it for transfers. Here, there's like kind of interesting things that are actually oysters are growing out of it, and this is the mycelium on top of the 60% plastic, 60% wood chips. It doesn't care; it still grows nicely. Here, the whole grow room actually had too much CO2, so that it's like. The stem is like way too long that it's supposed to be. You can see this kind of sci-fi place where we had first growth, and actually here totally taking over of this stack of bricks. Here's like dried out, taking I think it is before drying, before drying, but like just mushrooms removed. And this is after drying, and this is something for the next model, experiments, something to keep in mind, that for those mycelium bricks you have to dry it out. Fungi, the whole structure compresses, plastic as well, but you would have to have some kind of holes cut on the sides, so basically made the structure so it can kind of shrink and condense and compensate for the change of the size. So this is for next experiment. The first one was.
Thank you so much.
Thank
you so much, Maciek. The time is over.
All right.
Well, it was amazing presentation. So the participants, we can continue the conversation with Maciek on Slack. So don't forget join to Slack. And so thank you so much, Maciek. So well, we will move to the Shifa. Shifa, are you there?
Hello. Yes, I'm here.
Hey, Shifa, how are you?
I'm great, thank you. How about you?
Thank you. So, well, you can start.
All right. Please give me a moment to share my slides.
Sure.
Okay, so hi, my name is Shifa. I'm a 9th grader and I live in Ontario, and I'm really passionate about writing poetry and novels and reading science fiction books. And I aspire to merge the fields of medicine, robotics, astrophysics as my future career. And my project was made for my grade 7 science fair and was inspired by the famous boxer, Muhammad Ali. So a couple of years back, my family and I visited his conference.
You can present. You can put in you can click and present your presentation. So to give the show all the slides. So you can click in.
Okay, because I'm actually just presenting right now, and those are my 2 slides.
The top right, it says present. Just click that button.
Oh, okay. Can you see?
So there's a share option. If you see where your icon is, then there's like orange share thing, but to the left of that, there's a present button. If you can click that, then it will full screen it. Just so we could see better.
Okay.
But not the share, but to the left of it.
Sorry, give me 1 minute.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, sorry. This is, I'm using a couple of computers here, so it's a little hectic. Can you guys see the presentation?
Yep, it's loading. It'll get there.
Okay. So this project was made for my grade 7 science fair, and I was inspired by the famous boxer Muhammad Ali. So a couple of years back, my family and I visited a conference where they dedicated a portion to the famous boxer. So they spoke about his life and how he got Parkinson's later on. And I knew I had to do something for, you know, the rest of the world, because a lot of people have this disease, and I knew I wanted to try to help them as much as possible. So first of all, what is Parkinson's disease? So Parkinson's disease affects about 10 million people worldwide. And this is a neurodegenerative disorder that affects dopamine producing neurons in the brain. So dopamine is a fluid that helps neurons communicate. And when these dopamine producing cells die, Parkinson's symptoms occur. So some patients experience tremors, which happen most at the wrists. So some of the symptoms for Parkinson's disease include stiffness, slow down movements, unstableness, which is also seen in a patient after they've had the disease for a few years, and shakiness, often in this form of tremors, mostly near the hand or fingers. So all these symptoms are called Parkinsonian syndrome. And as there is no cure for Parkinson's disease, there are many medications to slow down the symptoms. These medications either increase the level of dopamine in the brain or act as dopamine. Unfortunately, though, they have consuming these medications result in side effects like vomiting, nausea, lightheadedness, appetite loss, low blood pressure, and confusion. So the most common symptoms in patients are tremors and freezing of gait, as they greatly affect the patient's ability to perform everyday tasks. So the type of tremors that my project focuses on are resting tremors, which is when the muscles are at rest, and action tremors, which occurs with the voluntary movement of a muscle, and task-specific tremors, which only occurs when performing highly skilled, goal-oriented tasks, such as handwriting or speaking. So according to several neurologists at New York University Medical Center, musical therapy is connected to what Parkinson's disease basically takes away from patients, which is the ability to do something without thinking about it. What most patients do when this occurs is listen to music, count, repeat the alphabet, and by doing this, it basically distracts the patient's brain and allows them to move freely. So like mentioned before, so the purpose of my project is that this is actually inspired by the famous boxer, Muhammad Ali, who has developed Parkinson's disease later in his lifetime. And it was honestly really devastating to know that this disease affected millions of people worldwide, and it currently has no cure. So I knew I had to take action. So the purpose of my project is to see if a wearable non-invasive device can be created to help neutralize resting tremors and freezing of gait in Parkinson's patients, while collecting the data and storing it for their health professionals using the cell phones. The project was to see if these symptoms could be reduced using vibration motors and coding them to vibrate in different patterns, as distracting the patient's brain would basically help them perform daily tasks with ease. So the materials. There are two aspects to my device. There's analysis and there's therapy. So the analysis part of my device uses an accelerometer to graph the range of the tremors that the patient experiences. And the reason why these tremors are analyzed is to automatically increase and decrease the power of the vibration motors, depending on how bad the tremors are. So the therapy aspect of it uses coin cell vibration motors to alleviate the tremors. And this idea was actually inspired by patients using musical therapy, which distracted their brain and helped them to overcome their freezing of gait and tremors. So after researching the capabilities of the accelerometer, I found that like dangerous situations like falling could be detected. And I simulated a fall event, and I found that falling graph always displayed the same pattern. So machine learning could find patterns in the graphs to alert on events like falling and extreme tremors. So before assembling the components, an online simulator was used to design the circuit and test the code. An Arduino Nano was used to process the code to vibrate the coin cell vibration motors. So in the initial test environment, I used LEDs instead of the actual coin cell vibration motors to make sure that the circuit was correctly put together. Key elements of the device included the accelerometer and as it measured the range of the tremors, and the Bluetooth module, which helped to connect the device with the phone. So Parkinson's Canada retirement homes, nursing homes, and support groups were contacted to recruit participants to test the device through social media, and they were informed about the device and they were willing to try it, and then consent forms were given. So the results included writing the patient's name for the test, drawing a straight line, drawing a variety of shapes with and without the device. So then the data was collected on the phone via the Bluetooth module, and it showed promising results. So the accelerometer was able to collect the data and create graphs in 3 linear axes, the x-axis, the y-axis, and the z-axis. The vibration from the coin cell motors distracted the patient's brain and neutralized the tremors while the device was worn. And the Bluetooth module was able to connect to the smartphone, and the smartphone could control the vibration motors by turning them on and off through the serial Bluetooth monitor. And this data was automatically transformed into graphs and labeled due to the device's self-learning abilities. So as you can see here, for number 5, the analysis, I have 4 charts. So the information on the chart represents the acceleration and direction, XYZ, of the hand tremors while they were performing the test. So the accelerometer shows how much the hand tilts, and it measured velocity or speed divided by time. And the analysis of the graph provided by the accelerometer showed different scenarios like falling, shocks, freezing of gait, which could be identified by the patterns appearing in the graphs. So in conclusion, the objective of the experiment was to confirm that if all the components were created into a device, the patient's tremors would be neutralized, and the person would overcome freezing of gait and tremors due to the vibrations distracting their brain. And there was a noticeable improvement while wearing the device. So the tests were drawing with and without the device, walking with and without the device, and signing their name with and without the device. So the 3 of the patients were tested. However, 1 patient had 2 symptoms, freezing of gait as well as tremors, and both symptoms proved to be neutralized while wearing the device. And the data that was collected would be shared with the health professionals for analysis to determine the progression of the disease. Thank you.
Thank you, Shifa. It was amazing progress. So, well, it's amazing and interesting how machine learning we can get more impact in the any type of device, in the principle in the medical application. So amazing. So, well, if anyone want to ask something for Shifa, you can put in the chat, or you can continue the conversation by Slack. So, well, we will move to Douglas. Are you there, Douglas? Douglas, I think that you need to unmute. I can hear you. We can hear you.
Okay.
Okay. Hey, you can start, Douglas.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's see. Okay, am I coming through?
Yeah,
And
we can see your screen. No
okay,
worries.
Thank you very much. My name is Doug Foster. I'm LA native. I went to Cal State Long Beach to study biology, and then went up to UC Santa Barbara to study biology, and did a long stint teaching biology in high schools in both American Samoa and Los Angeles. And I came to DIY Bio about 7 years ago through LA Biohackers. I'll try to go, I'll apologize in advance. I'm going to be a little bit light on data and a little bit heavy on pictures. And this is the bioprinter that we've open sourced. I'll also make an apology. The bioprinter's poorly documented. So if you'd like to get more information on it, I'll post some contact information. Please feel free to get in touch. And this is what I'm hoping to cover in 8 minutes or so. An introduction, resources, and background history. 3, assembly of Michigan Tech's 3D printer. And that's where I actually learned how to make a 3D printer. 4, printer and hardware and software. 5, bioink and successful prints. Cells and bioink. 6, sources of cells. And 7, some bigger questions. So first, if you'd like to get some content information or just get some resources, you might prepare to take some quick photos. Cameras ready, go. If you're new to 3D printing and you've never heard of a program called Tinkercad, it's insanely intuitive. It's open source, free, and web-based. The National Institutes of Health has a 3D print exchange where you can get free biologically related STL files. If you have access to a printer, you can print the files for free. It includes both scientific devices and models of scientific, models of organisms, models of organs. We've actually used one of their heart models to play around with printing organs in hydrogels, using hydrogels. Michigan Tech has a professor named Joshua Pierce, who is a huge open source advocate. And Michigan Tech's where I actually learned how to build a 3D printer about 5 years ago, 6 years ago. They have a teacher workshop first in the summertime. And although it focuses on teachers, if you send them a note, they might be willing to bend the rules. And then Adam Feinberg at Carnegie Mellon has open sourced and posted some STL files for an extruder, which is perhaps the most difficult part of trying to get into 3D bioprinting. I used to be at a community lab named the Lab, which was a victim of the pandemic. But if you're interested in 3D printing and you don't have a local source or a local resource, you might try BioCurious. They have a weekly bioprinting meeting. It's open to anybody. You just have to send them a note and they'll send you an invitation via Zoom. And if you want a little bit of information about this bioprinter, we actually participated in the Society for Neuroscience conference, which amazingly has like a society or an outsource strand. And if you want to do a project that's a little bit outside the norm and doesn't have to meet the rigors of many scientific projects, you can enter in that strand of the Society for Neuroscience. So anyways, we did a project and posted the project details on these 2 sites. And then if you want to get in touch with me, my name's Doug Foster. I'm at biome@verizon.net. I'm presently at an after-school STEM center, which is completely out of the box and kind of a makerspace before its time. Okay, a little bit of background. Each of these milestones has an amazing story, but the one I want to focus on is Adrian Boyer in 2006 came up with, or was able to pursue a lifelong dream of making a device that would make a copy of itself. He used an industrial strength 3D printer to pursue that. He was successful. He posted the results online. And a lot of people attribute the huge kind of blossoming of 3D bioprinting, I'm sorry, just 3D printing to Adrian Boyer's RepRap project. MakerBot Industries was a consequence of that. Just a number of proprietary businesses arose from that effort. And then Johan Roschel posted plans for a Delta printer in 2012. And bioprinting, I'm just going to focus on one milestone. In 1907, H.V. Wilson observed the self-assembly of sponge cells after he passed them through a mesh. And in my mind, that could arguably be the first and most successful instance of bioprinting in bioprinting history, because he actually, in a sense, printed an organism. All the other technologies subsequently are relying on this Wilson's observation that cells self-assemble. And to date, there's no no bioprinter would claim to be able to print cells in a way that would allow, or print cells with the resolution necessary to make a tissue or an organ. The underlying understanding is cells have some ability to self-assemble, and if you just place them in an arrangement that's close enough, they'll be able to make something. The printer that I actually made at Michigan Tech, I'll just show a quick time lapse. We reassembled it at the lab about 6 years ago. And this served as the basis for the printer that I'm talking about today. So it's called a Delta printer. It has, most Delta printers have 3 parallel pairs of guides. They were derived from parallel robots that were first developed by a guy in Switzerland. And apparently a lot of the patents went offline around 2010-ish or so. The printer and software. So here's the printer. The beauty of printing with PLA is you can make lots
Nicolas, you have 1 minute.
Okay, I'll go quick. That's the printer. It's we've printed the bioprinter with a printer, and the syringe there is where the bioink lies. I'm going to go quickly through. Replace the head simply with a syringe, and we use the filament to drive the plunger. That's a more sophisticated version. That's the working prototype. It's about 40 centimeters by 30 centimeters. I'm guessing most people are familiar with the concept of going from design to actual device, but that's the workflow. The bioink that we used, requirements has to be cell-friendly, hold its form. There's a synergism between a successful printhead and a bioink. And if you don't have a bioink that works, you can't test your printhead. So we did our first syringe tests with something we knew would flow, and that was just hand sanitizer. Sodium alginate is attractive, but we couldn't get layers to adhere to each other. We tried icing. Icing didn't work. And take your pick, if you have a camera, this is the mix that works. 0.5 grams of sodium alginate, 0.5 grams of low acyl gel and gum, 10 mils of seawater, and we're using that because we're trying to print marine sponges. After we used that mix, we were successful to get some prints with some fairly high resolution. I'll just show one. So this is a pyramid. Actually, I developed in Tinkercad.
Amazing, Douglas.
Okay,
Looks
that's it.
so great. Yeah. So well, thank you so much,
No problem.
Douglas. So
Okay.
well, we will move to the next talk section. So well, sorry.
Right, no problem. Understood.
Yeah. So well, now we have other fabulous speakers. He is Tom Peeters. He is from Brussels, Belgium. He will talk about what application has the biosensors, how cell biosensor for the detection of micro is a low-tech setting. After that, we will talk Oluwa Dumilola, so from Nigeria, Lagos, and so she will talk about the biosafety and protection on digital biological data. And so, well, Thomas, are you there?
Yes, but my co-worker Daniel, who is also here, he will present the talk.
If I'm allowed to share this now.
Okay, so you can share your screen.
Yes. Do you
okay
look at my title screen?
Yeah, I see it clearly.
Okay, thank you. Well, thank you very much for the invitation. We are going to talk about these whole cell biosensors and how we are using them to detect mercury in a low-tech setting. Our general aim is this one. We are aiming to teach the teachers so that they can lead scientific inquiries with their students using modern biotechnology applied on a pertinent local pollution problem. This is the local pollution problem of heavy metals, specifically mercury. The setting is this one, is in Peru. I am in Peru right now. Well, Peru is an extremely rich country in minerals. Name the metal, we have it. It's always among the 4 top producers of copper, silver, gold, zinc. Name the metal, there is a lot of metals in Peru. And of course, this is a source of wealth, but this is also a source of pollution in every different setting of Peru, in the Pacific Ocean, in the Andes, and in the rainforest, in the Amazon rainforest. So we think that if we take biosensors to the schools, it can be very useful. They are an exciting bloom in technology, and this can lead to have some awe in the classroom. Also, they are relatively simple and inexpensive. Once you have developed them, the bacteria can multiply themselves, and you can grow them in different media and still have them useful. Also, although they are more or less simple to use, they still are integrative of many different parts of knowledge. You have to, in order to understand how it works, you have to understand something about microbiology, chemistry, genetic engineering. And finally, we believe that this is a great opportunity to show not only that science is very useful, but also you show that DNA and genetic manipulation and bacteria, in a way, they are visible. We believe that students cannot learn about something that they have not seen ever. You have to see something, to have some familiarity on a subject as an experience, and then you can learn something about it, not only by just imagining, but by relating to something that you have actually done, touched, seen directly. So, well, in the lab, we have made this biosensor for mercury. The genetic circuit is one of our own design, but it is based on many publications that have been already in the literature for some years. So this is a specific adaptation of it. Maybe the most original thing is to use a very visible pigment. We're using this amyl CP blue pigment, and you can see that the bacteria show a very beautiful blue color, very intense, easy to see. So this is, we think, very adaptable for the practices in a classroom. The circuit is very well known. You have a repressor that is de-repressed by the presence of mercury. Okay, so we have this without mercury and with mercury, there is a clear difference, and there is a quantitative signal. Okay, it is very, very sensitive. I mean, the limit of detection is close to the limit of safety for drinking water. So it becomes something relevant to look at the results. And you can tell something about that is relevant for your health in your environment. Okay, but of course, there are many challenges on how to make this usable by the teachers. One of those is how to make it transportable so that it can be sent to different parts of the country and to keep it active for a long time until the teacher finally uses it in the classroom. So we tried a few things that are published to try to adapt that, but Petri dishes failed. They were not very reliable. Drying the cells on paper didn't work in the first few attempts. Alginate beads work very nicely. At least they are keeping the bacteria alive and sensitive for more than a month. Okay. Then we put this all together. We hold the plastic and including syringes so that the teachers can measure volumes, and Falcon tubes so that they can do the cultures on that, and also filters to sterilize the samples so that the teachers can use these tools in their own setting. These are the workshops. We traveled to Lima, Cajamarca, and Iquitos, and this is a teacher with a Bunsen burner doing some preparations. This is, well, grabbing some samples around the university. So we gathered different teachers from the localities in the laboratory of the university to have a workshop to show them how to use the sensor. They have to culture it, they have to put the sample in what proportion, how to sterilize the sample without using any heavy-duty equipment. These are results done by the teachers in those workshops. You see that they can detect different amounts of mercury, and these are some samples that they brought. This is the culture. This is when it is sedimented already. And also yes?
You have 2 minutes.
Good,
You have 2 minutes.
thank you. The workshops also included some theories, some practices with the gel so that they can have some direct experience. This is something nice that one of the teachers was mixing languages because he speaks Spanish and also Quechua. And you can see Quechua, PCR described in Quechua right here. We have a follow-up in the web page. This is important for keeping in track with teachers. This is the team, our team in Belgium, our team in Lima, the team in the university in Iquitos, and the team in the university in Cajamarca. Because I still have one more minute, I will put these pictures of one of the teachers, well, actually 2 of them. They got together in the house of one of them. They had a Bunsen burner in their house and prepared, this is an alginate bead, maybe you can see it. Oh, the alginate bead here, how it is putting it in pre-culture, and this is already the pre-culture 2 days after when there's already some growth. Okay, many challenges that we have met, so to have a protocol available for the teachers is some more words here. But I'll stop here. And I hope you like this presentation and the work we are doing that is just starting.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Daniel. So congrats for all progress. And so if anyone have some questions, don't forget to put in the chat. So well, we move to the only one no Lula. So are you there?
I am. Hi, can you hear me? I'm having internet issues. Can you hear me clearly?
Yeah, sure.
Good.
We can hear you.
Yes, I'm actually using my phone. I would like to do an elevator pitch since I only have 10 minutes. The gist of my presentation, you can see the name. It's basically
you can put full screen, please.
You said?
You can put full screen.
I didn't get that.
She asked if you could full screen it.
Okay. Can you see now?
Under slideshow. Oh, yep.
Is it okay?
Can you press F5?
Can I do what?
Press F5 on your computer. F5 button.
I use a Mac. What am I supposed to do?
Or click under slideshow.
Okay.
And there should be a presentation mode.
It's just below apply to all.
Yeah.
Can you go below at the bottom?
Slideshow. Yep, slideshow.
Okay. Oh, I cannot. Sofia, can you share my presentation because I sent it to you so I don't waste time with this?
No worries. You can present. Continue. No worries.
I'm so sorry about this. I don't know what to do right now. Okay, so the presentation is on biosafety and the protection of digital biological data. My scope measures the effectiveness of data redundancy in an era of globalization and digitalization. Data redundancy simply means you store the data in different databases, which could include the cloud and a backup. I have really experienced this summit in a new light, and the amount of information and work that is being done. I believe that bioscientists and biopractitioners have to start looking at data redundancy to protect the information that they are trying to innovate or share with the world. Next slide. The healthcare system shows the amount of problems that cyber healthcare has presently. it considers it as critical, as in critical condition. And 70% of hospitals experience significant cyber incidents, and disruptions that take place happens at the operations, happens in business, and also happens in profit. I'm sorry about that. That's the generator's noise. Let me go to the next slide. So the gist of this is how do we scale cybersecurity for one, bio communities that are in need, and those that are working with biotechnology, how do they protect their biological data? And then the solutions, the task will be to identify how vulnerable the systems and the networks are, which would include when you open a website, and when you download from the website, and this can penetrate the networks and also steal your information or data. The solutions here would be the convergence of research and development. So now the scientist doesn't work in isolation. He has to work with the cybersecurity team to attain data redundancy. It has to work with the IT team. And if they come at the framework, and that's at the beginning of my presentation, if at the inception of the cybersecurity design, they are able to look at what is important, which I'll be talking about after this, what is important, which could be something as simple as your biometrics, your physical address, your PIN, etc. All these things are important for the design of data redundancy. The next would be how to address this properly. You have to introduce biosecurity culture. You have to design an orientation of function within the organization, or if these are individuals that are working at separate labs, they have to design orientations. There has to be this resolve because your information, I learned a lot from this BioSummit, that your information is innovative. And because it's so innovative, there's a need to adapt this data redundancy as soon as possible. As soon as you start working on your project, it's important to start looking at how to protect your information from outsider threats. Thank you. How many minutes am I doing? So anyone can ask me questions.
Thank you. Hello. So, well, any question of our audience? Any suggestion? So, well, so you can ask any question for Honolulu or for Douglas, for Daniel. So, well, we have a few minutes. Well, Daniel, so I have one question. So, respect the biosensors. So, basically, the biosensor are remove any metal in the soil. So
no, they do nothing. They only show you that the metal is there. It's not doing remediation.
Okay. So basically, you can explain more respect the biosensor, or how to develop the design for the biosensor?
Well, it is E. coli, and the MER operon is very common in many bacteria. We're using a combination of some genes from Pseudomonas, promoters that are synthetic, and reporter, the very nice blue color, is a gene from coral. What else to say? If you want to improve the sensitivity, you have to change the transcription factor, but also the promoter of the reporter will make a difference in the amount of signal that you will have. There are many things which I did not show anything about that because of the limitation of time and because the focus is about open technology, right? But I have to say that many sensors are already published and they are out there in the literature, and you could more or less adapt them to your own laboratory facilities.
Could you adapt yours to another heavy metal?
It would be a very different transcription factor. So the genetic circuit will be different.
Mm-hmm.
But the answer is yes, with a different circuit. And yes, we are doing it. Actually, we wanted to make two at the same time. And the mercury one worked very nicely. And we also made a cadmium one. And the cadmium works, but with a very low, very bad limit of detection. It has to be like almost 200 times more concentrated than the mercury one. So we are going through that path too. We want to improve our cadmium sensor. And there are, well, yes, there are other metals. We are interested in other metals because there are many other heavy metals polluting, especially in Peru, but in many other countries as well.
Well,
my question is, your biosensors, could they be dissolved in water? And I mean, use them in water. For example, I'm growing fungi. Not fungi, algae, spirulina. I'm kind of interested in measuring and kind of have a look at what's in the inside of it. So is it possible to enclose your biosensors so they will not dilute and kind of still be able to use them in this kind of environment?
Well, as it is now, it is an offline assay. So you have to take your sample, culture this biosensor, and see how the color develops. If you want something that is online, that will be in your system and show the color at any time, that would demand an entirely different technology to keep the sensor living but not growing too much. And that would make a requirement of editing the life cycle of the bacteria without affecting too much. That would be very challenging in synthetic biology terms.
So you would require some kind of membrane which would not allow the bacteria to spread out, but kind of, and also some way to connect to, I don't know, some kind of device which can sense instead of changing the color.
That can be done, but it's not easy. You have to control the way it grows, and that changes the sensitivity of the system. For instance, we try this in very simple changes. You put it in a Petri dish, and then it only detects mercury the half of the times. It doesn't change the limit of detection. It changes the reliability. Sometimes it just doesn't work anymore. You have two colonies,
why it didn't?
Genetically identical, two colonies in the same Petri dish, and one shows the color and the other one doesn't. Any idea? Only hypothesis.
Okay.
So it will be challenging, but it is in theory possible. But you will need to make many, as it is known, many times you have cheaters in any system because they mutate. So you have to make sure that they don't mutate in a direction that is against your sensitivity. And for that, you have to make the circuit that is productive for you to be essential for the survival of the bacteria. So as I say, it's feasible, maybe, but it is challenging. It would demand not a trivial project.
Yeah. I mean, it's something I didn't have time to cover in my presentation. Was another step would have, imagine like matrix where we have humans in different chambers and they're connected to the matrix. I would like to have something like that for fungi, to have massive parallel experiments running with, like, for fungi growth, for example, I would like to have different chambers with different kind of CO2 levels, humidity levels, temperature levels, and actually use kind of robotics and 3D printing and to be able to run as many experiments as possible. With my background in software, it's kind of pretty obvious. You just need to have one container and then you scale it up in many dimensions. So I guess for your research also be suitable to just be able to automate the process of running the experiments with different conditions to be able to, you know, prove or disprove your hypothesis why it doesn't work in on a petri dish, for example. For fungi, it might be easier because all I need is a box and some inputs like a CO2, humidity, some light, and then maybe electricity as well, because
but you
it
still
also allows you to.
Sorry, but you still have the growing curve, and through that growing curve, you have entirely different beasts out there, because the cell, when it is in the lag phase, or when it is in exponential phase, or before entering the stationary phase, when it starts to curve, is behaving entirely differently. It's like a different animal. So if you have a growing curve, you will have a hell of a time trying to standardize anything. If you have it as a chemostat, and you know exactly the rate of growth and it is kept constant, then you can do multiplex experiments. But that's not trivial to get a chemostat on multi-chemostat. I would be very happy to have something like that. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, all I could do with this approach is just precisely control environment, but with a life cycle, yeah, I don't even know how to approach that.
Well, it would be very, very nice to have time and money to try on that, because that would be really very productive.
I guess this is what we can do as a community to, you know, start the work, share the source, you know, and like 3D printers. It started with the dream of one guy after the patent kind of finished, and he started experimenting with that. Now everyone using it and progress very fast. So if we can all work on, you know, different areas and share the knowledge and not get caught up with patents and things like that, yeah, I guess we can get somewhere.
An option is to go to cell-free systems, and that makes everything more simple, because then you don't have a growth curve, but it is expensive.
So again, what kind of systems? Can you elaborate?
Cell-free. So there are many strategies to grow your bacteria until you have enough biomass, and then you kill them all, but all the machinery is there. And it can be kept active for some time with some strategies like making them fixed in the matrix or lyophilized in the thinner matrix. But these are things that still we don't have experience on that. But once you have them, you can do multiplex experiments. It's very easy.
So what do you mean by machinery after killing the cells? What do you mean by that?
Ribosomes, transcription, polymerase, well, basically those two. But you need to feed them continuously with ATP. So those, precisely because of that, you get rid of all the complexities of the growing curve, and you have some setting that you can use it for many things. But it is expensive to get, because you need to make a very dense culture and then capture it and then use it while feeding it with ATP. It is being done, and there are many publications on that since 2016, but it has its own limitations. The whole cell biosensor is nice because it reproduces itself. It's cheap. This one is not well. The cell-free system has the advantage of, well, you can multiplex everything. It's very easy to work with once you have it.
Interesting things. I mean, seeing the young talent here, I hope we can get somewhere.
Yeah.
So, well, amazing panel discussion that has emerging spontaneously. So, well, for our participants, we have the break right now. We have exactly 8 minutes to the break. If you have take a drink, some snacks, Maciek, if you share anything else, anything you can share now.
What do you mean?
Sorry. So if you have to say anything to end the discussions, no.
Just thank you everyone for your time. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. The other thing for looking at the 3D printer that I didn't manage to cover is like multi-tool, multi-material printing, which you can have a look at E3D tool changer and Prusa Excel, which allows you to have multiple heads. So for example, the bioprinter that was presented today, this can be actually achieved with one of those off-the-shelf printers, and actually a head, which is the syringe, which is disposing the biomaterials, could be one of the tools on this multi-material printer. So you could print a little bit with plastic and a little bit with biomass, or in my case, I would like to have some kind of paste with already inoculated with some kind of fungi that could be kind of injected into the model. So yeah, something to look forward to in the future. But thank you, everyone.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone. So first, we have Scott Poland. He is from Canada. He will talk about how you can engineer biology with the OpenGex collection. So then we have the Isaac Larkin. He is from US. He will talk about the friends and how democratize the means of the biotechnological productions. Finally, we will have the Orlando Delange from Seattle, USA, and so he will talk about open hardware for science experiment optimization. So, well, Scott, are you there?
I'm here. Yep, just waiting for screen share. Okay,
Amazing.
Good. Make sure I get the right one. And then go into presentation mode. Okay, can everybody see that?
Yeah.
Okay,
good.
Perfect. Okay, so my name's Scott Pownall, and last year, I've just set my timer. Last year, I gave a workshop at Global Community Biosummit 4.0. And it was on the open yeast collection. But at that time, the open yeast collection was in development, so it wasn't really available. Well, today I'm here to announce that it is available, and I'll, in my talk, I'll give you links to where you can actually get it. Yeah, let me just go to the next slide. Weird that the keyboard doesn't, oh, there we go. Okay, so what is the open yeast collection? So it's a collection of DNA parts that can be used for engineering yeast. The two yeast strains that are it's specifically designed for are Saccharomyces cerevisiae, commonly known as brewer's yeast, as well as Pichia pastoris, which is used to produce quite a wide variety of industrial enzymes. So it's a very good platform because it does a good job of secreting many proteins out into the media. And that way, when you go to prep your cells, you don't have to break open the cells. You just spin the cells down, take the supernatant. So the open yeast collection, it's a free, reusable, and redistributable collection. It's also extensible, which means that each of you, if you wanted to, can add your own parts, or if you wanted to, you can adapt the framework of the open yeast collection to other species. So it doesn't have to be with yeast, and Isaac Larkin will be speaking next, talking about Bacillus subtilis. So this is useful for any community biolab. It's free, you can get it, and you can build on it. There are also some parts in the collection, and here I'm just going to go to the next slide. I'm not going to go into detail about these parts because I'm giving a workshop tomorrow. I'll give a slide on that later. But basically, there are some parts that you can build scent-based metabolic pathways. So the idea there is that you can actually assemble these parts, put them into brewer's yeast, and you'll get the smell of spearmint or something like that. So this is the terpenoid pathway. I'll talk a lot more about that tomorrow. There's a whole bunch of other parts, but you'll have to come to my workshop tomorrow to hear about that and how you can work with it. This couldn't have been created without the Biobricks Foundation and their Free Genes program. Of course, that's Drew Endy, that's the lead of the Biobricks Foundation, and I'm completely indebted to Drew for creating the structure and allowing people like me to contribute to this collection. The Biobricks Foundation, Linda Call was the creator of the Open MTA, which is a super powerful open source wetware technology or not technology, but legal document for being able to distribute it. It means that when you get it, you can create something and you can give it to somebody else. And it's free to use. And if you want to start a company up with whatever you develop, there's no encumbrances. This is for you to do what you want with. Whereas if you go to AdGene and a lot of those things, they come under restrictive MTAs. So Isaac Larkin and Keeney Gandol, they were both kind of creators of the Free Genes, and Isaac will talk a bit more about that, I believe, in his talk just after mine. But also, after Keeney left Free Genes, Hannah took over, as well as, and then Grace followed on when Hannah went into graduate studies. And so they've been the key people that I've been connecting with over the years to be able to make this available to you. So where do you get it? This is the link, and my colleague is going to paste in chat the URL so you can click on it. So when you go to the Stanford Free Genes site, you're going to see a whole panel of things. The open bioeconomy genes, and Jenny Milone, who is I think they're giving a workshop right now or very soon in another channel, but that's available here. But for the Open Yeast collection, you want to click on the organismal development kit, and you'll be able to order that for free. I would recommend, if you do want to order it, that you get 2 or 3 plates. That way you have backups, and then you can also share, because that's what it's there for. And the DNA, the plates are sent as DNA, not as bacteria, so you don't need a -80 freezer to deal with it. You can just get the plates. You can open up and pull out whatever plasmids you want. You'll learn more about that tomorrow. And yeah, gratitude. Again, Drew Endy with the Biobricks Foundation. It's totally amazing. Isaac is going to be talking about Friendzymes, and I was the principal investigator for a 2021 iGEMS team called Open Science Global, but we went by the name Friendzymes, and Isaac was the leader of that group, and he'll talk more about it. And Jenny Milone, what can I say? She's amazing. She's the founder of the Open Bioeconomy team. I'm a collaborator with them. I connect with their lab meetings most Friday mornings. And yeah, it's I'm super grateful for them. And then, yeah, okay, so the talk tomorrow is at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time in the mitochondria room. You just look at the schedule and you'll be able to go there. And we should be having pasted in the chat some links for you to join Friendzymes. So Friendzymes is a platform for working with not just the Open Yeast collection, but also the Bacillus subtilis and other endeavors. And this is not just wetware, it's also hardware, it's also software. So there's plenty of scope for all of you to contribute, irrespective of your backgrounds. And we need different stakeholders. I also want to talk about the Reagent Collaboration Network. So this is reclone.org. It was also set up by Jenny Milone, and it's a platform for people to be able to connect and talk about reagents that are used for diagnostics and things like that. Sometime I'll be giving a talk on the Open Yeast connection through there. I also have a website called openbiofoundry.org, which is really just right now a splash page. I've just been way too busy, and I could do with help if anybody wants to get involved with that. Yeah, so this is the Open Enzyme Collection, Jenny Milone's collection, and this really inspired me to work towards this. And some of the tools that we use to build the Open Yeast collection are available in the Open Enzyme Collection. So some of the enzymes to be able to cut and join DNA. And so if you're ordering from Free Genes, the Open Yeast collection, then you also want to get the Open Enzyme, the Open Reporter, and just have a look through. There's a whole bunch of things that it's a smorgasbord for this type of work. So yes, the Reagent Collaboration Network is reclone.org. The other website it's a newish one. It's called the Public Domain Gazette. And that's basically a platform where people can post resources and information that's gone off patent. And so if you have something that you want to share, you can post it there. And I'm not certain how I'm doing for time. I often speed up. But yeah, maybe I'll pop out a screen share, and if there are any questions that you want to ask. How am I doing for time?
Very good. You are at time. So well.
Okay.
Amazing progress, amazing work. So people, if you have any question for Scott, please put in the chat. Scott will ask all your questions. Well, we will move to Isaac.
Thank you, Sofia.
Thank you too.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Fantastic. Let me just start my clock real quick. Okay, so hello everyone. And let me also. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about Friendzymes and why you should all join us and help us democratize the means of biotechnological production. So primary motivation, we need a massive economic, political, and technological mobilization to combat the climate crisis and build a good future. And we're going to need to accelerate the democratization and distribution of biological technologies now if we're going to do that, because we need to build just, resilient, global human civilization in the next 10 to 30 years. And particularly on the material side, you know, food, medicine, industrial stuff, we're going to need biological technologies, not just sort of the genetic engineering stuff. We're also going to need ecological stewardship and, you know, ecosystem scale, as well as molecular and cellular and organismal scale. But right now we don't have near enough technological practitioners. We don't have nearly enough biotechnological productive capacity to make that transition in the time frame required. And so, you know, the area of biotechnology that I have trained in, bioengineering, synthetic biology, one reason that we don't have that capacity in this pool is that it's difficult and expensive to do it. You know, the lab equipment costs a lot, the reagents cost a lot, especially the synthetic DNA and the enzymes. If you're trying to do something beyond tinkering at the bench in academia or community lab, if you're trying to scale up and provide some sort of service or good to the global public, you're going to have to license patents and figure out material transfer agreement stuff. It's a nightmare, and it takes a lot of time and money to actually develop the skills to become a bioengineer, to do useful bioengineering. Question that we make biotechnology frugal. So that means, how do we make scale supply of a good or service? You know, how do we ensure things at the benchtop that can then go on to do that? And how do we do all of that in a way that is public domain, open source, and run on an infrastructure of open source and shareable hardware, software, wetware protocols, so that it's not inclusion, so that we can share it with everyone who needs to learn how to do it rapidly on the timeframes required. And how do we make all of that as cheap and easy as possible? So Friendzymes is trying to do that. So it's an international team and a project. We've got team members in like 10 countries on 5 continents. We're still missing Australia and Antarctica. So if you know any people, if you know any bioengineers in Antarctica and Australia, have them join us. I just shout out 6 Friendzymes team members presenting at BioSummit, because Scott's team Friendzymes, Sarah Ware, Ahmed Hussein, Harini Sudha, Sana Jalili, actually also Giovanna and Isaac Guerrero. So it's like 8. Yeah, we've got a lot of Friendzymes representation at BioSummit. So shout out to all of them. So the thing we're trying to do, how do we, we're trying to make frugal, open, scalable manufacturing of useful proteins. So when frugal, got to be as cheap as possible, not require expensive equipment and reagents, things like that. Open needs to be IP free in the public domain or freely shareable so that we can share it with everybody. Scalable, that means it needs to be capable, you know, once you get a good cell line of then potentially going into scaling up and being an industrial process. And in order to do that, we're going to need like different types of cells than we usually use for academia, and those generally tend to require more like, comprehensive engineering. And so simultaneously, we're needing to build mostly automated open biofoundries for high throughput biological design, build, test, learn, scale cycles. So biofoundries need to be cheap, need to be able to do lots of, build lots of constructs and test lots of things in high throughput. They need to be mostly so that you don't have to learn like advanced pipetting to be able to do hundreds of strain constructions at a time. And they need to be open source so that you know, we can share the designs and people can build them wherever they are. So enabling technology, Scott already talked about wetware license for biotechnology. We're leveraging that for all of our wetware. Free Genes project, you already talked about that as well. You know, free DNA, you can get free DNA. It's great. You can design free DNA. It's a new Linux for biotechnology. Everyone should be using it. And then in terms of how we're going to build a foundry, where we're going to be leveraging the cheap and or open source lab hardware that's been developed over the last few years, Opentrons, Luminars for lab automation, nanopore sequencers so that you can do DNA sequencing at high throughput with reagent cost. We're also looking at building open source plate reader, which is available as a design in order to do high throughput test, you know, actually measuring expression and things like that. So the challenge if you want to do scalable production is that E. coli isn't great. Requires expensive equipment to pop the cells and then to separate the popped cell guts from the soluble protein that you want. You know, tens of thousands of dollars or thousands of dollars for print presses, refrigerated centrifuges. So our approach, choose different cells. Choose the cells that industry uses for this stuff. Bacillus subtilis, Pichia pastoris. These cell types are used widely in industry because they secrete enzymes like crazy if you can engineer them correctly. And so that secretion can serve as a first purification step, and it also greatly simplifies the downstream processing if you can just like flocculate and pellet out the cells and then separate off the supernatant and then process the supernatant. And so in terms of wetware design, we've done a lot of stuff. I know this slide is just a bunch of text. We've designed B. subtilis and pastoris open wetware toolkits. That's the part of Scott's open yeast collection is for P. pastoris. He mentioned that. For B. subtilis, we've got you know, all the stuff you'd need for building, replicating, and integrating vectors, and a bunch of library plasmids that have a whole bunch of different secretion tags. And just to quickly show you, they're available for free in the Free Genes. Go and get them right here. It's great. And we've got one thing that I you know, don't have a lot of time to talk about, but we're expanding on the MoClo assembly standard, where we've got the possibility of building like the most powerful and best assembly standard for building genetic constructs from standardized parts in the world. So if you're interested in that sort of stuff, geeking out about that, you should definitely. And as we go on, we're partnering with the Poly open source software project, which is basically doing easy open source biodesign. We've been leveraging Poly to basically make sure that our genetic designs are as unlikely to fail as possible. You know, remove polymers, restriction sites, all the like bad things that can mess up the function of a genetic part or mess up its ability to be synthesized by like IDT or Twist, DNA synthesis company. You can also like simulate the part assembly into your assembled constructs in Poly. It's great. It's a really useful software package. Shout out to Tim Stiles, Keone Gandel, and Isaac Carrero in particular on this. We got sponsored by Opentrons, so we now have 4 like fully decked out Opentrons lab robots in our 4 initial collaborating labs. And we're going to be using these, we're going to be developing lots of protocols. And one thing we'd love help with is developing Opentrons protocols to automate basically building genetic construct from parts, transforming those into cells, plating cells, colony picking, all the good stuff. We're going to build biofoundries. We're also building out frugal bioreactors. So there's a fantastic design from Sebastian Kajoba for a frugal bioreactor that costs about $200 in components. There are actually a bunch of fantastic designs for frugal bioreactors, but we're testing out a couple of different of them. If you are interested in building out frugal bioreactors, we could definitely use your help with that. We're in the process of purchasing parts for our first open plate reader, and we actually got a flash grant from the Shuttleworth Foundation for $5,000 just like a week ago, which is going to be enough to get us the components for at least 1 open plate reader. And that's really important because, you know, once you have, you know, big 96 well plates full of all these different constructs expressing and secreting things, you need to be how much is being secreted with your like a fluorescent reporter tag. We're collaborating with Joggle, so we've already hosted 1 hackathon with like 100 people and like 10 teams around the world, basically envisioning what they would do with a frugal biofoundry and trying to get people excited about the idea of building frugal biofoundries so that we can start building out a lot of frugal biofoundries around the world. And so I just want to reiterate, join us. We need you. Help democratize the means of agricultural production. There's so much work that we can do. And I want to also stress, anyone anywhere around the world at any age, any skill level is welcome to join us, because a lot of this project is us learning how to do these things as we build them. So, you know, you can do advanced wetware design. You can do, you know, if you're good at pipetting and you have access to a wet lab, you can test out the constructs that are built on the open.
Isaac? Can you hear me?
I think it's video hung.
Equipment that's going to be required for open source biofoundries, sequencing, all sorts of good stuff. Yes, there's also, we need free and open source cell lines that we need to engineer. And also, Tim is resynthesizing his registry through FreeGenes, and they need help with that. And that would really, there's a lot of overlap there.
Amazing. Yes. Thank you so much, Isaac. Amazing global open source, open science initiative. So all participants, feel free to contact to friends and for any collaboration or any question that you have. So well, we will move to Orlando. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah.
Cool. Hi everybody. This is already so much exciting stuff. I'm just going to share my screen and move this over. There we go. Okay, so hopefully you can see that and hear me. And so I'm going to talk about open hardware for science experiment automation, but more specifically, basically 2 things. Which would be reporting about some findings from interviews with people working in community labs currently, particularly on the topic of kind of open source automation, and then just give you a brief introduction to a project that I'm working on at the moment that I thought could be of interest to people. I'm going to start by just briefly giving you a few pictures that are maybe helpful for understanding a little bit about me and where I'm coming from. And my dual role as both an academic researcher working at the University of Washington in Seattle, working on projects relating to synthetic biology and also kind of design of laboratory equipment, but also as a community science practitioner and manager of Sound BioLab, which is a community lab in Seattle, Washington State. And I wanted, I think Nadia, hopefully if you're there, to allow Nadia Peak, professor at University of Washington, who I'm working with as of the beginning of this year, and who I'm going to show some work that we did together to talk about human-computer interaction, and I guess herself a little bit.
Hello,
If you're there,
everyone.
Nadia.
Yeah, I guess Orlando and I started working together during the pandemic, really curious about how to support the exploration of science with tools and technology, including automation. And I was surprised to learn that he was pretty unfamiliar with even the existence of the field of human-computer interaction. Just a field in which we're not just developing new types of technology, but also trying to understand humans who use it and how that works and helps. And so there's a lot of interest from human computer interaction to DIY bio. If you want to go to the next slide, Orlando.
Yeah.
Of understanding what are people doing in community biolabs? How does that differ from the kinds of research that might happen in corporate or university labs? And what are things that, what are systems and technologies that we can develop to support the kinds of things that are happening? So at Machine Agency, the research group that we're in at the University of Washington, that's really our main focus. How do we develop systems, specifically systems that help harness the precision of machines for domain experts, such as DIY bio practitioners? So back over to you, Orlando.
Thank you. Yeah, so something we worked on pretty much over 2021, kind of combining some of my interests and experiences and some of Nadia's interests and experiences, and also working with Kelly Dunn, who's another member of the research group, who was also at Bio Summit, so you can say hi. We did this was not really designing a specific system, but doing qualitative research, interviewing managers and users of community biolabs. So we specifically looked at places, organizations that had a fixed space that they had to manage that was in some way publicly accessible, not gatekept by some sort of prior qualification barrier, like a university might be. And we just wanted to know about really like the material realities of particularly trying to do project work, not so much education in community biolabs. And so I won't talk about everything we did, but just focus on kind of some findings related to automation. And just to say, like, yeah, we interviewed 11 different people from 7 biolabs. This was to submit to a conference, which it was not accepted for this year's conference. And so if you'd be interested in talking to us about your work in a community biolab, definitely feel free to hit me up. Because this is definitely not everybody everywhere. This is not going to be fully capturing all experiences, but hopefully provide some useful insights. And so some things we learned kind of, I think, that are relevant to automation. One of the things we asked a lot about was just what are the challenges and concerns facing users and managers? Some things could be pretty obvious, like safety is something that particularly lab managers worry about a lot and is very important when considering what they kind of allow to be in the spaces. But then some other things included difficulties managing the logistics of complex workflows, which pretty much every kind of bio work is pretty darn complicated. And similar to that, coordinating group work, which is almost everyone we talked to really wanted to be working cooperatively, and that was a big challenge for a lot of different reasons. Similarly, sharing expertise and training new members, these were kind of daily challenges. And kind of sort of like the flip side of that is that actually there were other people who felt that they had a bunch of expertise and knowledge that they wanted to be able to contribute, and they didn't really know how to do that in the context of the space. Like there weren't existing projects they could tap into, or they didn't really know how to create their own. Things that weren't really a challenge for the people we talked to were sort of the cost of equipment or obtaining standard lab equipment. And people weren't really so bothered about the quality and quantity of data collection. And in general, like availability of technical skills for doing the challenging work they wanted to do was not really the problem. It was more about how to get access and organize it and get the right people connecting with each other. Because actually, a lot of the people we talk to, and I think this has been shown in numerous surveys, have a huge number of technical skills from a range of different backgrounds, and the community labs kind of represent these places where people are coming together from who kind of already have a lot of technical skills and training. In terms of people making their own tools, we found that there was a real variety, with some people doing like never really engaging with creating their own tools, and some people doing it very frequently, and maybe not so surprisingly, where we found that community labs were co-housed within makerspaces or had a close connection with the local makerspace, we saw a lot more making activities. And then, yeah, so automation, we particularly asked about, because that's an interest of the research group. We found that every lab that we talked to, they had machines to automate work, but not all machines were equal in their importance to users. I think it wouldn't be very surprising to hear that thermocyclers were a pretty important part of every lab that we talk to. You might not necessarily kind of think about them as machine automation. They may not seem super sophisticated, but they are actually these very flexible, important tools. Almost every lab we talked to had a 3D printer, and they actually tended to be used a reasonable amount for different things. And every single lab we talked to had some sort of automated liquid handling platform, most commonly at Opentrons. And whilst it's not that no one was using them, we found that there was far less kind of use of them and interest in using those sorts of platforms in the near term for people we talk to. And kind of, I think correspondingly, we found that when we asked about kind of why people might want to automate or work with automation platforms in their community labs, the things you might generally hear about more in a professional biolab setting didn't really come up so much, which is high throughput, enhancing precision, saving labor, didn't seem to be as important to people. But there were maybe other things that you wouldn't necessarily immediately think of, but I think can be really relevant. Things that automation can contribute to is developing or providing outlets for kind of people with technical backgrounds in engineering or computer science, simplifying the execution of really complicated scientific workflows to make them more accessible to newcomers, supporting creativity and encouraging curiosity, providing new ways for people to manipulate and work with biological materials, and providing a scaffold for cooperative work. The machine can be this thing that people can work around and communicate through. So yeah, if you're interested in any of that and want to read like the full paper, if you just like message me on Slack, I can share it with you. And then in the final minute, I think I have left, I just wanted to point out the Jubilee Project is this really cool open source project that I've been working on. It was initiated by researchers in the Machine Agency Research Lab at the University of Washington and is now developed by the community. It's an open source project. There's a really active Discord group of people building Jubilees and helping each other build Jubilees. And it's essentially a tool changing motion platform. So you can it can move around in X, Y, and Z axes. And you can program it to, in kind of one program, pick up and use multiple different tools.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Amazing contribution, Orlando. Nadia, anyone have any question? Or, you feel free to contact them. And so, well, we need to move. So the last panel discussion that we have. And so give me 1 second. I will share my screen. Okay, well, we'll start with the second panel discussion in the Open Innovation track. She is transforming biotech projects into startups. So our moderator, Chen Hailin, he is from Singapore. He is a student of National University of Singapore. So our panelists are Liebman. So he's from US. He will talk about the building bridges with investors to scale biotech projects. And the last panelist, Agustin Bramanti, he's from Argentina. And so, well, he will talk about the Assistive 500 life science company builder. So, well, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Sure.
Great. Good. So shall I just go ahead and share my screen?
Oh yeah, Arunav, can you give permission to?
Looks like I can share it here.
Oh, okay, perfect.
Cool. Well, hi, everybody. I guess I'll just go ahead and get started. Just jump in if anybody has any comments or challenges. So yeah, my name is Ari Lippman, and I'm kind of deviating a little bit from the planned topic today because there's a new project that I wanted to share with everyone. And it's called Lab Dow. But this is intended to be a new way to bridge investors and funders with the DIY bio community and the community bio folks such as yourselves. But let me start with just a quick introduction. So I'm a biologist by training. I studied molecular biology at UCLA and then had an opportunity to work with a bunch of different biotech startups, some of which I started myself and some of which were started by other people. And kind of had this experience of seeing how challenging it was to start a biotech company as a scientist and to, fund and get research done. And more recently, I started a fund called Mars Bio, which does venture investing in early stage biotech startups. And we've been exploring kind of new mechanisms to fund science outside of the normal ones, which might just be, venture investment or grant writing and things of this nature. So I'm going to talk a little bit about, how I feel about community bio, which is that I think many great innovations will come out of this community over the next decade. Oftentimes, some of the world's most interesting technologies come from the most unexpected places. So I'm really excited to see where the community goes and the sorts of things they develop. But funding is always a problem. And that's something that lots of folks have talked about today, is how do we actually support these kind of outsiders or unconventional scientists. Just as a little bit of background, the venture community doesn't really have a great way to interact with community biolabs for the most part. Our typical way of interacting is writing a check into a company in return for some share of that company. And we don't really have a good way of supporting nonprofits or supporting kind of early stage science that isn't ready to be a company yet. So, folks might get grants from nonprofits. They might be getting, academic funding. They might be able to run some services in return for capital. And that's the sort of area that I want to focus on today, because I think offering services or offering, research as a service can be a great way to generate capital for a community biolab, but it's very challenging to manage that process. And it's very challenging to find customers and figure out ways to share that data and so on. So what we're proposing is a new entity that is enabled by crypto or a token that matches up scientific resources, could be physical hardware or lab space, or even software that scientists may have on their computer, and matching those resources up with scientists who need those resources. I'm going to give a bit of background on kind of what a DAO is, what crypto is. A DAO stands for a distributed autonomous organization. And this is basically a company structure, but it's underpinned by a blockchain. And that effectively means it's kind of equivalent to a corporation or a company that you might found in Delaware or in your country of origin, but it lives effectively on the internet. And that gives you more flexibility in terms of who owns that company and how they participate. And what's exciting about this is I think we can sort of leverage our global bio community and allow them to have ownership in this company. And that ownership can be equivalent to their level of participation. So what we want to do is build this Lab Dow that acts as the interface between scientists who need resources and resources that may be available at a community biolab or at a CRO or at an academic institution. By participating in this Lab Dow, a community biolab can generate revenue kind of by easily finding customers for services they might want to run. So for example, if you have a PCR machine in your home biolab, you can run experiments for someone who's participating in this community, give them the data back, and in return earn compensation for that. Maybe it'll be in the form of a share of ownership in this DAO itself. but ultimately you can translate that into dollars or into whatever currency you want and potentially subsidize some of the other research that you have going on in your lab. And as I mentioned, if you're participating in this Lab Dow, ultimately you will have ownership over the organization and the ability to direct which direction the organization goes. I think that's what's exciting about this compared to maybe just a normal startup, is that you actually have the ability to dictate the direction of the organization and get kind of involved in a meaningful way and participate in the upside if it's successful. So our kind of broad goals for Lab Dow, we just launched this relatively recently. We're still building it, but the goal on the sort of user side is to allow anyone around the world to run an experiment, even if they don't have a lab or equipment. We would also like this to allow new labs to form, to generate to address this demand, generate funding, and then explore their own mission. So if you're an individual and you're able to invest in a piece of equipment or something, you may have the ability to build your own lab around this source of funding. We want the Lab Dow to capture the data in a controlled way and manage the data sort of on the blockchain, as it were, which may allow for better data sharing and consistency amongst different organizations. And long-term, like I said, the community will be able to take a stake in the project. By participating, you have ownership over some of the Lab Dow, which will help direct its future and hopefully bring financial gains back to whatever entity you're working with. We'd love to have people's input on this. We'd love to work with anyone who wants to be involved, whether it's a user of services, a provider of services, or a developer who can help us build out the kind of marketplace infrastructure. So feel free to reach out to me if you have questions. We have kind of a pretty active Discord channel and are just in the planning phases of this. So appreciate you allowing me to share it with you today.
Thanks so much, Arya, for the sharing. Shall we now move on to our next speaker for today? Augustine, do you want to share your screen?
Great.
We'll get
Thank
questions
you.
later on after everything. So let's put it after.
Yeah. Shen? Well, Augustine? Okay, sure.
I think it's working fine. Thank you, everyone. My name is Agustin Bramanti. I'm from Argentina. I'm head of the company builder of SF 500. It's a life science fund where we work side by side with scientists and entrepreneurs to tackle grand social, human, and environmental challenges from Latin America to the world. This is our first Bio Summit. We're extremely grateful to be here. I'm loving all these great projects in mind, and we're eager to keep in touch and working with you. Okay. Hola. It was very interesting also to hear some presentations in other languages. It was quite fascinating to see, to share with this community, to this global community. But we are, right now I'm in Rosario, in Argentina, a beautiful city in the center of an agricultural zone of our country, in the province of Santa Fe, around the center of that star. We are in the global south and the actual south of the globe. And this is what an agricultural field looks like, a bit stereotyped, but we do have those views on the road. But Rosario is actually a vibrant, culturally rich city on the banks of the beautiful Panama River, where several agrobiotechnological companies are striving. But what I wanted to tell you, I'll start telling you, is what characterizes Argentinian research, specifically for bioscientists. Around 80% of our research is publicly funded from national institutions, public universities, and federal funding. So these companies are part of the exception here. So what does, how comes SF 500 here? Well, we are a fund, we are a startup, we are 100 days old, about 100 days old, and we are public-private partnerships, because all of this all these problems come from SF 500. Our main partners is Biosenso, a company that started around 20 years ago, 20,000 in a city of 20,000 inhabitants, around 200 kilometers from here. And now it's a publicly listed NASDAQ firm. And we're also funded by the province of Santa Fe. And I think this is the key element of our nature. Because it started with the creativity of enabling actors that had fluent dialogue, but responded to logics that made working close together quite difficult. And we needed to respond to specific South American challenges. We need a critical mass that we can generate from a single place. A critical mass of factors working and thinking of life sciences, of biotechnology. We need economic and social development, and we need new opportunities. We need job creation. We need space for talent to develop. And we need a local first solution. In this spirit is that there were several great initiatives, but they were isolated with low level of interaction to promote the transformation of research and science into startups and solutions or market solutions. Our job was to align several initiatives and combine effort to enhance the potential impact. And the public sector has always had the challenge to promote a self-sustaining research funds. The participation of Santa Fe Fund of the Santa Fe province in the SF500 fund is a novel experience where the public sector will also reap the benefit. Luckily, we are in a great company. We have a great number of experienced advisors that lead our way. This is just some of them that are helping us. But I wanted to tell you a little bit of how we work. Our goal is to build the next 500 life science companies of Argentina in the next 10 years. We have set an extremely high bar, but we're so convinced that we will achieve it that we have put it in the name itself. And we ourselves are the first SF500 startups. As I said, we are 100 days old. We're just almost 4 months old. We have started a company builder process. We're working with 7 early stage projects, and we're collaborating with some other more advanced companies, and we're building our local and global ecosystem. We strive for speed, and to achieve our goals, partnerships and collaboration is the only answer. But why a company builder? Well, our raw material are the scientists and entrepreneurs that are scattered in the public and private universities, in the research programs, and on their daily jobs, they dreaming of grand solutions and grand problems. And we need to promote a mindset change, a cultural change, a new ecosystem. From a public perspective, from a small enterprise perspective, from a bootstrapping model mindset to a high growth and a global impact mindset. And this can only be achieved by removing structural barriers, such as legal and financial management and red tape. And also by matching science nerds with business nerds, and yes, there are management nerds, we know a few, but mostly we need to look for commitment. We look for commitment and passion. But our most profound impact will be to move from a company builder to an ecosystem builder. To reach our goal of 500 life science companies, this is not enough. Just building companies is not enough. Anyone that's involved in startups has recited the mantra that we need to build an ecosystem, and startups are the vehicle. We strive to be an ecosystem builder. We need massive scale. As a developing nation and region, we have a classic chicken and egg problem. To have a striking group of biohackers, entrepreneurs, inventors, thinkers, we need technological services, we need hardware, we need infrastructure, and we need a global mindset. But all of this needs an ecosystem to start itself. So we have a world-class and prolific public universities and scientific institutions that nurture the roots of our systems with great minds and passionate researchers. And we have great bio companies, particularly linked to the agribusiness and food sector, where Argentina is a leading player. But we don't have a dynamic passion and tinkering-driven playground or startup ecosystem, not at least in the bio sector, in the IT sector and technology sector. We do have one. We don't have one yet in the bio sector. We have beautiful cases. We have extremely passionate founders and scientists, and some companies. We want a full-blown ecosystems. So thank you for this time. Muchas gracias. As I said, this is our first Bio Summit. We're extremely grateful to be here and to be able to share this with you. And we hope that our paths cross again very soon.
Thanks so much, Augustine, for sharing what you are doing in Argentina. It's always cool to see different people in multiple different places trying to start their own ecosystems, because that's extremely important, right? In order to solve problems that you are facing on a local level, you got to have your own local people who actually understand these problems and enable them to solve them as well. So it's really great to hear all these initiatives, along with, for example, Arye and your initiatives with Lab Dow. I think that's also extremely important in order to get people working together as a community as well. So I think now we are opening the floor to questions. So if you have any, please feel free to write in the chat or raise your hand and unmute yourself and ask those questions. But as you are preparing to do that, I think I'd like to seal in one question that I think it's relevant for both of you, which is, at least for a lot of biotech startups, especially if you're a student, right? And you're studying biology and it's something that's interesting. For example, let's say the Friendzymes team, they have something that they have developed that's really cool. But at what stage do you think they should be suitable to seek funding to actually develop their company into something more like a startup and therefore bring it forward instead of staying as a project? What determines that kind of threshold for transitioning from academic work or research work to a startup? And that's a question I'm posing to, I think, both of you guys. Whoever feel free to take it first, yeah.
Ari or me, it's okay. Do you want to start, Ari?
Go ahead, Augustine.
Okay. Well, this is a discussion that we are having almost daily at the fund, as 500, because due to our nature, I would say there is this scale we use a lot, and it's an excellent reference point developed by NASA, that it's technology readiness level. Probably you've heard, it's not a useful tool to talk about these issues. And usually early stage funds work with technology readiness level 3, that is, you have some sort of proof of concept that works, or works at lab level. The issue we had in Argentina, and normally technology readiness level 1 and 2 are too risky to be funded by private investors, so they usually are funded by public funds. But in our case, we're trying to, we have an hypothesis that we can fund technology readiness level 2 projects that are just an idea. They have some proof, some laboratory proof, but they still need to work a lot on the scientific basis to achieve their output, the market output at least. But in this context, we feel that there is a need for that. At least a part of these 500 companies will need to be a really early stage scientific stages to really no one else will fund them. They will be stuck on the lab, or we will be too late if we wait for the exclusive public sector to fund them. So that's why we work together with this. As I said, we are a public-private fund.
Yeah, the only thing I would add is just, I mean, for us, there needs to be a product and a market and a team. So I think if you have those three things, or the start of those three things, we'd be interested in talking. And you do want to be targeted with the right kind of investor, because some investors invest very early, some investors come in a little bit later. But I think if you have a clear product and you're going after kind of a market need, and then you have people to help you execute on that goal, then someone like us in the pre-seed space would be ready to talk to you.
Amazing, thanks for those answers. I see that Maciek has his hand raised. Would you like to say your question?
Yeah, I just want to add to the previous question that Proto Ventures, I linked this in the chat, is another place where you can kind of reach out if you have all those three things. Like, yeah. And my question is, I mean, kind of a note and an open questions to everyone, because I see a lot of duplicated effort in terms of seems like we love building 3D printers. So we see a few teams, a few few presenters building their own printers, and actually and as a printer they don't very much. The most important bit is the like a tool head, for example, that like disposing different kind of biological materials. I just wonder, I guess the BioLab, BioSummit is one of the places where we can unify, but I was just wondering how we can remove duplication and kind of unify us, or maybe build a map of what everyone is doing so we don't have to reinvent the wheel and just reuse the components. So think about like we have GitHub and we can have those components that we need for things that we want to do. And yeah, I'm just wondering how to remove the duplication of work that everyone else is doing. And there's a lot of similarities. I don't know who can answer that.
That's a great idea. Maybe a BioCurious could act as a host or a repository for at least that sort of line of development.
Aruna?
You know us so well, yeah. We'll have to talk more offline and maybe take it to the Slack.
Yeah, it looks like it.
It seems like there are people who are interested in talking about this in another panel as well. I think Tim has mentioned that tomorrow at what time was it? 5:20 EST. They'll have a ET, I guess. There will be a DIY automation panel that will probably discuss something along these lines. So that might not be the best. This might not be the best question for this forum, and I think that should be answered in the next talk as well. But thanks for the question as well. It's still very interesting, and deduplication of efforts is of course important in fostering more innovation happening, so that people don't waste their time and effort trying to redo things. I noticed that I think Jeremy Cahill had his hand up. Please feel free to unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hi, my question was about the very weird disparity that I heard, and I'm not really sure that I'm supposed to interpret it literally, but I wanted to double check. So what I just heard a couple minutes ago was talk about what different funds target for their level of development and the product development cycle. So where they are in the funding cycle. And I heard a bunch of discussion about being in the pre-seed space, yet expecting a product. I also heard about technology readiness levels and the idea of TRL3 being the target or the standard for seed funding. So basically pre-A series. And I'm just wondering what was that actually the intended outcome of that conversation, because that just doesn't, that's not true. that's not how clinical trial development works. For instance, you can't fund the clinical trials without the seed funding. No one funds potential drugs or other types of medical interventions, medical countermeasures at the seed stage with the idea that there's a finished product. So I'm kind of wondering what I'm hearing.
Yeah, I can jump in on that. Thanks for the question, Jeremy. That is good to clarify, because I think I did say that. I said product, market, and people. When I said product, I didn't mean a final product. Could very well be an idea for a product, could very well be a version 1 of a crappy product that will someday be amazing. But just clarity around what that product could be should the company get the funding it needs and or be successful. So more of a product vision, I suppose. And it is for, of course, if it's going to be a clinical product, maybe you have some data on some candidate in a cell assay or something. Certainly not a finished product, but at least a product idea.
Okay, well, I mean that's TRL2, right? So that merging into TRL3. So it's if it is a clinical product, that non-GMP stage, non-trial stage of evidence still costs money that is being fronted by the fund. It's just I don't know what to make of these.
Yeah, like how, I mean, the question is like, how do you fund even the very earliest phases when you're exploring, as it were, and trying to find that idea? And I mean, you know, that is the challenge. That's kind of what we're talking about. Where
well, is anyone going to be coming out of a community biolab with the notion that they're developing a clinical intervention, but and a clear roadmap of how they would go through the drug development cycle? So they're, you know, presumably familiar with this process, so they have some experience, but also requiring like seed funding stage offers. It just, I don't understand who this discussion is about, because most community biolab projects, people are trying to develop on previous, maybe interesting for intellectual reasons, but maybe not commercially relevant results, or maybe they're just doing exploratory work. I'm trying to envision someone sitting in a community biolab thinking that they are doing the pre-gaming of clinical development. That's not a thing that I've ever seen.
Let me take a shot at it, or how we're focusing on this problem. I agree with you that there are different kinds of problems that need different kinds of solutions. The VC model comes from the software ecosystem, where product market fit is the norm, is what the funds look for, and they need that in order to be prosperous and to achieve the results. In the case of life science, the problems are human problems. So if you arrive to a probable good solution, there will be a social need for that. So that barrier, the market barrier, is not that much of a problem. But you still need a lot of funding to pass it through the stages needed to achieve that solution. And I think the final solution is a mixed solution, both from the VC universe, the self-funding way, and the public sector. But if you're not, but what you finally said about the biolabs, the community biolabs, not looking for a specific solution, but trying to learn, it's very similar to what happens inside universities, where the goal is knowledge. It's not a market goal, it's specifically necessarily a market goal. So some developments will need this kind of funding and this kind of road. Not all of them, not necessarily all of them, and we have to build the tools more adequate for each problem.
Thanks so much, Augustine and Arye, for providing this question. I think we have to move on to one because of time constraints. I think Frenzymes wanted to ask one last question, and yeah, please go ahead and unmute your mic.
Yeah, this is a question for Augustine, I suppose. You know, for you and for people like you who are trying to foster and grow in sort of biotechnological entrepreneurial ecosystem where one hasn't been there before, do you see a role for, I don't know, supporting projects aimed at enabling common infrastructure that from which particular biotechnological applications could then be spun out as startups? You know, I'm thinking, for instance, of a frugal biofoundry running on a free genes repo or something like that. Is that something you could imagine a venture capital firm putting up funding for in Argentina, for instance, in order to enable to de-risk the rest of the biotech growth of the biotech ecosystem?
Yes, absolutely. I think there is a path that we need to cross there, that we need to travel. I think there is in the building of an ecosystem, we need this type of lab. We're working with we're building this infrastructure, the part of the infrastructure. At the moment, it will be private, and well, would be licensed or rented. But at some point, we will need a larger community or not a more open community, because that will we have this this objective, this so high up objective that we will need a lot of new ideas, and those ideas spur from very open environments. So we will probably be led there by our own constraints. So absolutely.
Great. Thanks so much, Augustine, for the reply. Arya, if you have anything to add on, please feel free as well.
No, that was a great answer. Thanks everyone for hosting, and yeah, I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you all for being here, and it was lovely to hear this conversation. I think we had some very interesting insights about community biolabs as well, and how they can link together with the current venture firm and how it runs innovation. And I think if anyone wants to reach out to the panelists, they can feel free to either drop their contact in the chat, or we can also link you guys up together with them if you have any questions to follow up on. Otherwise, thanks so much for being here. I think now we are moving on to a break. Sofia, would like to take it from here.
Yeah, thank you so much, our amazing panelists. Thank you so much.
All right, welcome back, everybody. We have another great set of speakers lined up. We'll give another minute for people to trickle in from their break. We've got 3 talks lined up, really talking about sort of how do we share and how do we enable biomedical research in community labs. And our first speaker will be Martin, talking about Juggle Fits, which is a great new initiative at Juggle, sort of in collaboration partially with iGEM, as I understand. And yeah, really looking forward to hearing about Fits. Let's see. We might as well start on time, right? Martin, take it away.
Hello, folks. My name is Martin Kodar. I'm contacting Donald Nolan here from Dublin in Ireland. I'm a neuroscientist and an engineer and a Juggle community member. I'm here to talk to you about a program called Juggle Fits, which is short for Fitzgerald. And we're working to create a pipeline to bring healthcare products from independent scientists and the open scientific community in general to the global marketplace. So why Fitzgerald? Well, Fitz is in remembrance of John Fitzgerald, who's a Canadian physician and a public health specialist, who's instrumental in control of diphtheria in the early 20th century by producing and working on diphtheria antitoxin. He was also instrumental in facilitating the first tests of insulin, and a pioneer in general of making accessible medical tools. And we're hoping to pursue such efforts thanks to the Juggle community as a whole. So I think a lot of you are aware of what Juggle is, but briefly, it's an open community based at Juggle, JOGL.io, which is just one giant lab, whereby many open scientists, highly experienced open scientists, are ranging from not so experienced to very, very experienced, come together and work on solving open research projects using kind of a combination of web tools and Slack. Slack has been very useful, and Zoom. And also many of the participants have access to their own labs, some of them quite sophisticated, where they can do some of the experimental procedures and protocols that are necessary to try and solve these issues. So as part of this community and as part of the work on the pandemic, we were very successful in putting together a number of teams, which we entered into the X Prizes rapid COVID testing competition, which kind of garnered a lot of attention in the media, but very importantly to me, kind of got everyone together within our open organization and had us all agree on what a product was going to be and what we were going to actually enter into the competition. instead of just continuing to innovate and continuing to come up with new additions to the project, everyone had to agree on an actual deadline to commit to a project or to a product itself. And like I said, we were very successful. We had 4 teams making it to the semifinals, and one of our teams made it to the finalist group. And I don't think he won. I don't think they won, because it was a $5 million prize. So I hope they would have let me know. But in reality, no, unfortunately, they did not make it all the way through to the finals. So with the background of that, I'd like to give you a bit of a background to the creation of FITS. So many open source and pro bono projects were created and proliferated throughout the pandemic. Personally, I was involved in PPE projects, ventilator projects, and then finally with Joggle, open lamp testing projects. So in this, many professionals, really experienced professionals, have volunteered hundreds of hours developing solutions and working on all of the technical nitty-gritty issues that's required to get one of these products to actually work in the lab. And it was incredible because operating in a world without NDAs and all these contract agreements and everyone being worried about who knows what other people are doing or who's going to get reputation or credit for each different thing was really very liberating. And I think that it resulted in progress that was accelerated so much. I think that, you know, we were able to do projects that you would normally think about would take a year, and we were doing them in the space of weeks. It was really mind-blowing and exciting. It made me actually quite excited during the pandemic to get up every day and see what the other teams all around the world had done while I was sleeping and seeing how far we progressed. It was quite mind-blowing, actually. Now, unfortunately, despite of all of this progress and all of the actual working real-world solutions that people had in their labs around the world, very few of these projects ended up in creating actual medical products or biomedical interventions that were used in the real world. So why was this? Why was there no translation to the clinic? To a large extent, this is due to operating in a highly regulated environment. Many scientists that work in open biology aren't aware of these challenges. They can think that it's working in the lab, it works on my samples, it works on my personal samples. It should be made into a product. It should be easy to make it into a product. And everyone was very good at doing that in their labs and solving problems for themselves. But people weren't aware of all of the regulatory challenges that exist with medical products. These projects are not represented by a formal entity that can engage with a regulator. You can't just call up the FDA and say, hi, we're some guys on the internet. We'd like to get a clinical trial going, please, or get a product through to the marketplace. You have to have a formal entity for legal reasons, and so that the FDA knows who they're dealing with. These open groups weren't also familiar or capable of dealing with manufacturers, all of the other types of people that are involved in bringing a product to the market or even getting it to a clinical trial. The economics of this was also a big challenge for many of these groups. And because of these, these are the ones at the very tip, the primary reasons most of these projects were destined to remain at the proof of concept stage. And this is where FITS comes in and what we put together in regards to creating something that could solve this problem. So Fitzgerald's mission is to be a pipeline from these groups to industrial partners to bring these community-driven solutions to the real world. We're going to create an animated chaperoning program for these projects. And we're going to also create and run an institutional review board to provide counsel, resources, and funding, in some cases, to the projects. We'll be the formal representative to the selected projects in front of the public agencies, and also engage with the the manufacturers and the distributors. We'll also provide a bridge between the projects and the public agencies, or the public in general. This is just a brief summary, visual summary of what we're going to be. So again, we're going to be an incubator program and a chaperone for projects through to the clinic, engaging with regulators and manufacturers. One of the issues that we saw was we want to keep this all open source. We want people to fork this stuff, even when it's through to the manufacturing stage. We want someone to take it, license it, or even go and do it themselves. But we want to improve science. We don't want to own this. That's not the goal. We're all open people, and we're providing our services pro bono in most cases. However, there are legal issues with regards to IP ownership when you're trying to go this way, and you want to offer something in a fully open way to allow people to fork it.
1 minute, Martin.
Sorry, 2 minutes? Is that what you said?
1 minute.
1 minute. So academics may not be aware of all of this exists in the background, and even reagents, etc., may have IP associated with it when you actually go commercially. So we have 2 Pathfinder candidates. One is Corona Detective, which is a lamp. It's a lyophilized lamp test, and Viral Alert is one that uses very interesting and exciting kind of waxes to allow different schemes to happen within one tube, test tube thing. So where we are so far is we're kind of at the very early stages of productization and clinical validation. We definitely slowed down towards the end of the pandemic, and people kind of started doing their own things. There was less focus involved. A lot of the projects and the solutions seem to be almost solved. So I think I'll end there and invite any questions. I know I'm close on time.
All right. Thank you very much, Martin. It's a great initiative, and I'm looking forward to seeing what's coming out of there. Up next, we have Peter Collins. Martin, if you can unshare.
Yep.
And Peter, if you are ready to share your presentation.
Yeah, so please, anyone tweet me and contact Jogel if you want to follow up.
Yes, please continue conversation on Slack or in the chat over here for that matter. Peter, are you there?
I am, yes. So, yeah, thank you for inviting me to speak. I'd like to share with you guys something I've been working on for about a couple of years, part-time, and definitely, looking toward a mature software product by about Easter 2023. So it's a website called biotorrents.de. Basically, like the what.cd of genome sequences. So, the point of the site is to distribute the costs of bandwidth among peers, sharing data, over BitTorrent protocol, which is quite fast.
Peter, do you have a presentation to share?
I do, yes.
Okay.
All right, so I'll just share the screen then. Oh, I can't share while another participant is.
I don't think anybody is sharing at the moment.
I believe Martin might still be.
No, my screen tells me I'm not.
There we go. All right, well, yeah, so we're good to go. Anyway, it's using the source code from what.cd. So that means that the indexing and discoverability features are top-notch.
Peter, we still can't see your screen at the moment. Sorry about that.
Wow.
Hang on, let me see if I can do something. Try and unshare and then share it again. See if that works. Sorry, everyone. Technical difficulties.
Great. So here we are, yes?
I still only see has started screen sharing. Are your slides available anywhere?
Well, it's sort of more of a live demo.
Uh-huh.
So, it's just like the web browser.
Yeah, well, we can't see your screen at the moment. If you can just talk through it, that'd be great too. And if you have links for where to find the live demo.
Now
we see something now. Yes.
Great.
It's working now. Yep.
Yeah. So, anyway, the focus is on high degree of discoverability. So, the data is indexed by quite a large variety of, data points. So, you can put in the accession number, it's multiply indexed, title of the study, the subject, the organism, and the specific strain that you're working with. You can search by researcher, lab, year, description. It supports, a lot of different technology platforms, a million flavors of XML for, the protein sequences and whatnot. And, it's not just genomes either. So, it's sort of intelligently organized to support things like Kaggle kernels or, Docker images or, like microfluidics data, just like a wide variety of different biology data, including vector and raster images and GIS data, etc. So let's see, a quick torrent. And, here we have, like the ubiome kombucha data actually from Counterculture Labs, the Kombucha Genomics Project. And sort of where I got the idea for the site, first of all, a site did exist called Just BioTorrent, from 2010 to 2014, which was great. And, I've been in contact with Morgan Longiel, who led that effort, and he gave me quite a bit of advice, which is wonderful. But anyway, a lot of the DIY biolabs had sort of trouble getting their data out. People want it to be there, but it's just all too often like an FTP or a Google Drive somewhere, and then you have to know exactly who to ask, which it's obviously a problem if there's just like one point person. And I've run into this problem at the Boss Lab itself. So, like that's what I'm sort of working on, solving this problem, making it fast, not racking up too much bandwidth bills in the process. And yeah, so, there's still quite a bit to do. There's a lot of technical debt to get through. And, a large focus of the development is on, like really optimizing the data throughput through the site. So, I want to make sure like it's easy to get stuff in, you get it out fast, but that doesn't sacrifice, the ability to index this data on many discrete pieces of metadata. And, security is a huge focus. I'm CompTIA Security Plus certified. So, that's always in the background of, this essentially a PHP 5 sort of ported over to PHP 7 modernization effort. There's like a lot of separation of concerns to go through. Just some stuff like that. And yeah, so, it's an effort for sure, but it's something I truly enjoy doing, and I believe fills an important niche, especially on the data sharing. It's only Libra data sets, free licenses. And yeah, like another thing as far as next step goes, good API integration, specifically with Semantic Scholar and probably ORCID as well. When somebody uploads a torrent, I basically want to scrape a certain amount of citation information and then use that to populate the site and eventually support the ability for the site to autonomously produce its own data sets for example, once a month, the torrent table and then the literature data set get uploaded to the site as a FreeLeech torrent. So, like here's this data sharing engine, and it's got like a fairly robust API. And most recently, what I've been working on is a new front end. So, just drastically simplifying, making it a bit more mobile friendly. And
you have 1 minute, Peter?
Okay. Yep, just getting the information displayed clean and, very nice. And then just a quick note about the future of the application. I'm very big on using the most modern, most secure features possible. So to that end, during this period of heavy development with the separation of concerns, I'm moving toward an application structure that's API first, and then the website that you see is simply a client of the API, gets the data, and then passes it into templates. So, it's fully escaped, very fast. And then everything that you should do on the website, you should also be able to do on the API. Anyway, that's all. Thank you for listening.
All right. Thank you, Peter. Just since we had you starting a little bit later, there was a question in the chat. Is there a screening process for any content? How do you stop this from developing into a porn site?
Screening process for content. How do I stop it from becoming a porn site? Well, hilariously, it was a porn site to start with. So the fork of the software that I'm using, it's actually a Japanese adult video site, but screening process for the data, there's some basic screening in place. Specifically, you have to participate a certain amount before you can even upload anything. And, as of now, it's a pretty small site, so I'm definitely trying to cross that bridge when I get to it, definitely build out a lot of automated sort of like, just sort of automating the moderation a bit, because as it stands, a lot of the features for that are very labor intensive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Also,
Thank you.
The site never sees any of the data itself.
Yeah.
So.
All right, let's go on to Sarah's presentation. And Sarah unfortunately couldn't be here as in person, but I do have a recorded video from her. So let me see if I can get that started correctly. Is that playing?
Hello, BioFam. I'm Sarah Ware, and I'm so excited to be at my 5th Global Community Bio Summit. I apologize for not being live. I'm traveling for the holidays, but thank you for coming to this talk entitled Towards the Creation of a New System for Patient Advocacy, which is an argument in favor of expanded patient rights. So this is admittedly an oversimplification, but in the US, there are currently 2 ways to be treated medically. One is through mainstream medicine under the care of medical professionals, and the other is non-traditional medicine that is generally not under the care of medical professionals. I am not here to argue that
No. Something went wrong.
Maybe you can refresh the link.
Yeah, I'm not sure what's happening there. I've gotten a network error. Try it again.
I am not here to argue that non-traditional medicine is not effective. To the contrary, I am arguing that sometimes it can be very effective. Sometimes it's not. So let's put this under the care of medical professionals. What if we could create a third space for treatment? And I'm drawing this from first and secondhand personal experiences. I'm sure you've all heard of people, hopefully not loved ones, but maybe, who are suffering medically and for whom treatments that are traditional are not working for them. Maybe it's because treatments don't work for anyone, but maybe it's because they're just a complex case. But regardless, sometimes people go to great lengths, even going to other countries to seek medical treatments that could potentially be dangerous. They could end up dying, or they could be benefited. But let's put this under the care of medical professionals. My firsthand experience, personal experience, is with my daughter, Gwen. Gwen was hospitalized for 9 months, and she had sudden onset psychosis after a mild case of COVID-19. I'm a researcher, and so I started doing a lot of research, and there are many studies that document sudden onset psychosis and cognitive dysfunction after someone has had COVID-19. So I was presenting this information, these studies, to the medical professionals, and I was given no consideration for treatments outside of mainstream medicine, even ones that were documented to work. Also, there were no considerations of previous hospitalizations or treatments, and so each time it was like starting from square one. So where did this leave my daughter? This left her in a very dangerous situation, and it left her and our entire family feeling very helpless. So what if this third space existed for treatment? What if we can combine the mainstream with the non-traditional medicine under the care of medical professionals? What if Gwen could have gotten off this human hamster wheel much sooner than 9 months? So proposed is the creation of an IRB, an institutional review board, and ethics board that could be petitioned by patients when traditional treatments have not been working. And let's try some non-traditional treatments. Let's try some new things, but let's try them under the care of medical professionals. A petition would not guarantee approval, but it would guarantee a chance for approval. That was all I was after. What I was dealing with was giving some information to medical professionals, asking, could we try this? Because look, it's been documented that this has worked for some people, and just being told no by one person, and then that's it. There was nowhere to go after this. So members of the review board would need to be representatives from all parties of interest. So let's talk about who those could be. Patients. I mean, these people maybe have benefited or wish they could have benefited from some alternative treatments. These people bring the first-hand personal perspective. The patient advocates bring the second-hand personal perspective. These are people who are going through this with a loved one and that they are frustrated and want help for them. We need bioethicists to determine the ethics of implementation of or withholding of treatments. And we need bioethicists to ensure there's proper informed consent. So an argument I make for this is, at what point is status quo and mainstream medical treatment that does not work, at what point is this status quo unethical? And I argue that it becomes ethical to allow the patient to try some alternative treatments. Physical medicine physicians and nurses, these people directly care for the patients. Similarly, behavioral health psychiatrists, psychologists, and nurses are directly caring for the patients. They can speak with the patients. They understand the patient's current state. And I argue that for the behavioral health side, there is already a lot of trial and error with medications and therapy types. Facility directors, directors of hospitals, nursing homes, behavioral health facilities. This argument is, let's alleviate risk aversion by providing legal documents. In my experience, these directors are risk averse due to fearing legal actions. Let's alleviate this risk aversion. And that brings us to lawyers. So lawyers can properly document consent forms. They can draw up agreements that will legally protect patients, but also will legally protect physicians and facilities, for example. IRBs already do this. This would just be an expanded role for IRBs. I have in parentheses also DNRs because some patients in their files have do not resuscitate requests. And maybe such a kind of paperwork could be drawn up that could be in a patient file before anything happens and just say, look, if something's not working, I'm all for trying some different things. We also need insurance company reps in this IRB. And the insurance companies, of course, are going to either approve or deny coverage of medical treatments. And if it's denied, many patients will not pursue it because of the cost. The argument I have here is, at what point are the failed results after long-term mainstream medicine has been tried? At what point is this cost effective for the insurance company? So to wrap it up, this would guarantee a chance for approval for non-traditional treatments under the care of medical professionals. It would be an expanded role of IRBs. This could be creating a new system for patient advocacy. So we can talk about personalized medicine. That's big right now. This would be a type of personalized medicine that would bring the entire patient experience to date to a board. And it would be, it's one thing to say, my daughter was hospitalized for 9 months. It's another thing to break it down and really personalize it and let a committee see, what does that really entail? What did this girl go through? And can we try something different? So let's combine mainstream and non-traditional medicine under the care of medical professionals. What if patients don't ever have to get on the human hamster wheels? And what if patients get the help they need in whatever form that may be? If you're interested in further discussion, please join a Zoom meeting Tuesday, November 30th at noon CST. You can contact me through sarah.ware@bioblaze.org or through the BioBlaze Community Lab Facebook page. Thank you. And Martin will field some questions, my friend and colleague Martin. Thanks, Martin, and thanks to you all.
All right.
Yeah, hi folks, I am here to answer questions if we're still have time.
So feel free to ask questions through the chat, and Martin can answer them.
Yeah.
And I think we have a couple more talks coming up.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Patrick, for the wonderful session. And I think now it's time for the lightning talks. So, Sophia, do you want to share the screen, or shall I share the screen to show who the people are?
Sure. Give me 1 second, please. Yeah. You have permissions now, Shanghai.
Okay. Let me share the screen, and I will move to a full screen once my computer. Oh. See my screen?
Not yet.
Zoom is somehow crashing. Okay, let me. Okay, is it now full screen?
Try to unshare and share again.
Let me try that again. Awesome. Okay. Thanks for all being here this morning, afternoon, evening, from wherever you're calling. I think we have a wonderful panel of global speakers here for our lightning talks, where I think the general gist of what everyone is talking about is on supporting community innovation with either via various means such as funding models or developing new types of enzymes or resources for people to use. So we have first David from the Experiment Foundation in Seattle. We have Sana from the Friendzymes iGEM team in India. We have Nadia from Biotech in Lima, Peru. We have Ahmed, who also works with Friendzymes, but he's based in Canada. And we have lastly Isaac, who is also with Enzymes, but now he's based in Brazil. So we have a wide variety of people from all around the world. And I think that really encapsulates what BioSummit is all about and what open innovation is. So without further ado, let me give the floor to David to start off with his presentation. We have 5 minutes.
All right, thanks so much. It's awesome to be here. I just wrote in the Slack that it's been a while. I was in the DIY bio scene like a decade ago when BioCurious was just launching their Kickstarter project back in the day. Can you guys see my slides? Anyone
Yes.
nod? Okay, cool. So the question I'm going to be talking about for the next 5 minutes is, can we improve science funding mechanisms and dynamics? And the reason I care about this is because, you know, when BioCurious was getting started, my friend Eric and I were building an underwater robot in his garage, and we were building an open source underwater robot for exploration and science and citizen science. And we launched on Kickstarter, and we raised, you know, $100,000. And then we all of a sudden had this community that was growing and this company that was growing out of his garage. And then we got sucked into, you know, the demands of running a company and all the things that go along with manufacturing. And we were, you know, designing more robots, and all of a sudden there was competition from everywhere around the world, and all of a sudden the world had changed, and so much had happened because of those ideas that we had in the garage. And but that initial experience kind of really stuck with me, and we got a small grant to do that, and I wanted to spend the next year or a few years thinking how to pay that forward and how to get more interesting science questions and projects kind of up to the starting line and going. And so my friends who'd started Experiment, I'm sure a lot of you know Cindy and Denny and experiment.com. There's so many, I'm just trying to think, like Open Insulin and so many other like DIY bio and community bio projects have gotten started on experiment.com. If you haven't heard of it, it's like Kickstarter for science. Now had over 1,000 funded projects. I started the Experiment Foundation because I realized that some of the bigger foundations weren't comfortable writing like smaller checks between $5,000 and $10,000 to lots of people. And so I was wondering if we could fix that. And so that's what I've been doing, going out and raising money and trying to fund interesting projects and do it in new ways and do it in a way that's more risk seeking and not risk averse. And I've had a lot of ideas that I've been testing out. I've done quadratic funding. We've done NFTs for science, which I don't think are quite there yet. But the most interesting idea was this idea of science angels. And so what that is we're giving money to scientists and telling them to act like angel investors. Just you fund the projects that you care about. And if you want to read like the whole thesis behind this, you can go to scibetter.com/angels and you can read my whole kind of thesis. But we've prototyped it all summer. So my friend Jedidah Eisler was funding women of color in STEM. I've been funding ocean solutions projects. And next week, this isn't public yet, but you guys can go to these web pages right now. Robert Downey Jr.'s new foundation, the Footprint Coalition, is funding a handful of science angels in these categories. So community science, indigenous futures, conservation biotech, cellular agriculture. And so these science angels are going to have discretion to fund projects quickly. So this is like small, fast grants to move money quickly into new projects. So if you have ideas, I encourage you to go and get a head start and apply because they have budgets right now and they can move as fast as you can fill out an application. So these are fast funding amounts. They're small amounts. So like we're talking about projects between $5,000 and $15,000. So it's not like an NSF grant, but it can be enough to get initial data for a project. And you know, we don't care where you go to school, like what university you're at, what like community bio projects. There's one that's about to launch from GenSpace, maybe in the next week. That's awesome. That's where I got my start, and I know that there's a lot of really good projects in there that just need a nudge to collect that initial data to get off the ground. So we're trying something new. I hope you'll support it. I hope you'll go to Experiment and check out some projects and support some fellow community scientists. So thank you very much.
Wonderful, great. Now we have Sana to give her next talk as well.
Sana, are you there?
I saw her here earlier, but I think she might have dropped off. If while we are waiting for her, perhaps we can move on to the next speaker first, and then we'll get back to Sana afterwards.
Sure, sure.
So yeah, shall we have the next speaker come up and say their piece, perhaps? Maybe we can have Nadia if you're around. I noticed that you have
Nadia, are you
yeah,
there?
are you there?
Oh, right. I'm here. Sorry.
Amazing.
Great, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we can
please feel
start.
free to share your screen. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna share my screen. Wait me a minute. It's loading. Okay. Can you see?
Oh, yeah, 5 minutes. It's still loading, I believe. I think Zoom with the recent update is slower. Yeah, great. It works now.
Hi everyone. This is the one lightning talk, and I'm Nadia Chamana, and I'm here to talk to you about science for and by people. Well, maybe you are related to some of these phrases. For example, you don't know exactly one theme, one topic, or in my case, you don't know synthetic biology. Those phrases came from people or professors that taught me, and also who has a great academic performance. And also those came as from an internal voice of my mind that always said to me before I started to do some things. And also you don't have the needed to be in the IGN competition, and you can teach what you don't know, and so on. So I started to change that phrases, and also those opinions. And I work at biotech, and I started to democratize science, especially the area of biotechnology. Then I learned in Open Insulin Foundation exactly what are we referring to open. We are doing science for all the people, and that means that we can collaborate with a lot of people who has or hasn't enough experience to do it. So in order to learn all about, in this case, to do a way to create insulin in a cheaper way. Also, now I'm working with Real Vegan Cheese, and that's an amazing experience also, because they are trying to do open science, but open science in a way that the results that they are going to share will be for all the community, and in order to make a sustainable vegan dairy industry. So that's also an example of that. Based on that experience, I participated in the first IGEM Design League competitions with the team, the Mycotech, and I'm so proud to say that we won this competition. We won the grand prize, and yes, and all of that just teach me that I am able to do it. So nothing nothing is gonna tell me that I can do it. So in that case, we want to extend the food shelf life of fruits and vegetables, and we are doing that in Peru. So here we pass from those negative phrases to say, for example, we taught children synthetic biology, and they told us that I want to follow in your step. I want to study your career. So I started to teach synthetic biology. Even I wasn't the perfect teacher, or I had enough experience to do it. And also many people told us, I want to be part of your team, even before we had the success to do it. And also many people started to tell me that I want to understand what you do, my family or friends or even people that I don't know, they want to do what I am doing. So I'm here in Latin America, and we had a lot of problems, and we started to trying to find ways to solve it. And also we started to teach other people how to do it. And I think that is the change that we want, not only to study for us or just make the great technology. It's just to share for everyone that I can do it, and also share with people, share with the person, with the people that has this problem. Thank you very much.
Fantastic, wonderful initiatives. Let's move on to Sana, who will be sharing about her talk now. Are you here now?
Yes, I think the Sana is here. So Sana.
I see that she can't seem to connect to the audio for some reason. Perhaps Ahmed or Isaac would like to go first. Maybe Ahmed, would you like to go first?
Yeah, sure. No worries. Ahmed,
Can help Sana figure out her.
you can
difficulties.
start. Okay, sure.
Ahmed, are you there? Oh, Sana seems like she can connect to the audio now.
And if you want, you can start.
Yeah, Ahmed, are you there? You can go first if you are available.
Okay, sure. I will check.
Yeah, Ahmed, are you there? Can you hear us? Ahmed Hussein.
So I think that he have problems with the audio.
Sure, okay. So while Ahmed and Sana are trying to fix their issues, maybe Isaac, you want to go first? Awesome, yeah. It's all normal. Zoom has been giving some color.
No, that's okay. I'll try to share my screen.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Perfect.
You guys prefer to start with Ahmed, or I can continue?
I think since you have shared your screen, we can continue.
Okay. You guys have seen my screen?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. So, hello. My name is Isaac, and I am presenting open software for OpenBio. And my name is Isaac, as I said, and I'm a software engineer in Brazil, and I'm also the software leader of the Franzymes Initiative. Franzymes, it's a group of friends that we are trying to democratize the means of biotechnology. And we are trying to make this because we want much more bioengineers in the future, so we could have a bright future using synthetic biology and biotechnology tools for resolving global problems, basically. And today, my presentation is about a small story. So 7 years ago, I was not a software engineer, and I was actually a journalist. And I received a call and for an interview with IGEN team in my city. And after this interview, I basically begged this team to receive me. And luckily, they accepted me, and I started learning about synthetic biology and biotechnology. And by learning about synthetic biology, I started learning about wet lab, and I started designing genetic parts. And by programming life itself, this experience gave me courage to actually start programming machines, and because machines are much more easy to program than life. And after this experience, I started programming actually. And all those years, I have asked myself how I could use my skills to be part of synthetic biology revolution. How it could be useful for this. And for, so how it could help synthetic biology. And today I'll give some thoughts about this question. So first, I have get in contact with Poly. Poly is a Go package for engineering organisms in general. And I think the creator of Poly, Timothy Stiles, it's very sick. He is a software engineer in San Francisco. He's very sick about how academic and how difficult it is to actually make software for synthetic biology. And he created his own library to make more easy to contribute, to understand, and to get in touch with synthetic biology. And I think my first answer for this question is Poly is a good way to start learning about software and synthetic biology. So people from different backgrounds, so software engineers from Australia or from Philippines, go to the Discord channel of Poly and they start asking questions because they are very interested about programming life. And we basically start showing bugs and features and comments and texts and articles, and they start learning about this. So I think Poly, it's a very, very good way to start learning about synthetic biology software. I will also say that Franzymes project is also a good way to start learning about synthetic biology software. From these years, I think we are working for 6 months before I start working with the Franzymes. And Franzymes have created a lot of tools to help synthetic biologists to make design of parts, to understand what are the problems in those parts, and also how they could improve those parts and understand the holistic around us, basically. We also create a lot of software to show how people could make software and make features and translate this to something that's useful for design. We also, not only for design, but also by the automation, we are creating protocols, automated protocols for OpenTrons. And because we now have a lot of machines that we could work together, and we are trying to automate this. So our idea of right now, we are trying to ask what people are interested in software and in synthetic biology, and we would like to ask if they want to be part of this revolution with us, basically. So yeah, I think that's all. So let's make software together, be part of the Franzymes and the Poly software, and get in contact with us, basically. This is my email, but we also have Discord and other Franzymes members and Poly members all around this BioSummit. So get in contact with us. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thanks for the wonderful talk. And yes, you can find out more about Franzymes from what Yenke's link is there as well. And it's always cool to see new initiatives there. And I think let's move on to Ahmed, who is also from Franzymes. So we'll share his own work as well.
Ahmed?
Right.
We can hear you. Oh, okay. Yeah.
Okay. All right, and you can see my screen? All right, let me just see here. Present. All right, so right now you see the slides and nothing in front of it. Okay, good afternoon, morning, or evening, everyone. Sorry for the technical issues. If you've been watching the events at the Bio Summit for the past few hours, you may have heard of our initiative, Friendzymes, aimed at democratizing biotech through democratizing enzyme production and biofoundry infrastructure development. A few members of our team that we have here have spoken already or will be speaking on different aspects of the project. We have Scott Ponal, Sarah Ware, Isaac Larkin, Sana Jalili, Giovanna, and Isaac Guerrero, as you've just heard. If you were lucky enough to witness Isaac Larkin's speech within the last hour, then you've learned about Friendzyme's overall aims, accomplishments, and inspirations. However, I'll be focusing more on the wetware approach of things and what our general approach was in the lab. This will only be a 5-minute introduction to my workshop tomorrow at 4:30 p.m. ET, where I'll be delving into things much deeper, and talking about design choices and troubleshooting problems and more. But for today, let's talk about the basic approach for frugalizing enzyme production. In general, industrial enzyme production is done with the help of E. coli, an organism that requires a plethora of expensive equipment to aid the extraction of proteins of interest due to the lack of a reliable secretion system. On the other hand, we have those two GRAS organisms on the right here, B. subtilis and B. campestris, which do have secretion systems to secrete proteins outside the cell, which is a central step to saving costs associated with extraction of enzymes. However, B. subtilis has not been used at the industrial scale, which means the processing and robust engineering infrastructure for working with it has not yet been developed, especially in regards to enzyme production. Therefore, things had to be optimized from scratch, including all the aspects of the shuttle vector from E. coli to B. subtilis, since, as you may be aware of, producing DNA is still more practical under E. coli, but working with DNA afterwards to produce and extract protein is not. But most importantly is this aspect of B. subtilis. So B. subtilis has 170 secretion tags, and it's, with our current knowledge of the organism and enzyme production, impossible to tell which tag works best with which protein. And the differences in productivity between secretion tags are not negligible. Therefore, we had to develop a way to high throughput screen every single one of those tags per protein of interest to develop an efficient yield of enzyme that could rival current industrial processes. And we did that through those library secretion tag plasmids that you see here, which were developed by Isaac Larkin and our team and posted up on FreeGenes. So anybody watching right now can go to freegenes.stanford.org and order a whole batch of those 6 plasmids completely for free. I'll dive deeper into how they work in our setup tomorrow, but the architecture of the plasmid is basically a collection of secretion tags paired with its ribosome binding site upstream and flanked on both sides by a restriction site and the same 5' and 3' overhangs to fit into our Golden Gate assembly standard, which I'll be discussing briefly. Daniel Ziegler, director of the BGSC, Bacillus Genetic Stock Center, has helped us to optimize a lot of our processes, including the B sub strain that we'll be using to express this plasmid that we'll be discussing, but also things that are later down the line, like the bioreactor environment optimization for our protein expression, which, if you're present during Isaac Larkin's speech, we are also working on a frugal bioreactor to fit into our workflow and frugal biofoundry infrastructure. Under the guidance of Keone Gandel, we found a family of naturally occurring shuttle vectors from E. coli to B. subtilis called PHT vectors, which are derivations from one of the first naturally discovered B subs plasmids, PBS 72. We do, however, have a list of other shuttle vectors developed by Dan Ziegler that we are willing to test out to optimize our system. So taking apart all the parts of the PHT 43 plasmid that we just discussed to fit into our assembly standard, we've come up with this general structure for our plasmid, which incorporates not only those PHT 43 parts, but also assembly architecture from Scott Ponal's open yeast collection, as well as B. subtilis origin of replication, which was a major issue in our project, and I'll be discussing that more deeply tomorrow, target selection, and the main transcriptional unit structure for our enzymes of interest, which due to time I'll also get into tomorrow. So all of those individual pieces that I've just discussed do fit in nicely in one workflow, and I'll be getting into more detail about that tomorrow during my workshop. And so here are all our Friendzymes handles. Our team mainly engages with one another on Discord, so feel free to hop in. All the discussion is open to anyone who would like and contribute to the team in one way or another. And I hope you'll come to the workshop tomorrow. Thanks for stopping by and hearing my presentation. And thanks to Biosummit for this platform and for having me.
Once again, thanks so much for the lovely presentation. It was always cool to see what different people are doing in these kind of fields. I think we're still missing Sana. I'm not sure whether she's able to join in or not, but perhaps since she's representing Friendzymes and I believe she's talking about optimizing microbial media, does anyone from the Friendzymes team want to jump in and help her give a quick presentation? Or otherwise, we can always move on as well. Yeah. Or we can leave the floor open, 5 minutes open talk to anyone who would like to share anything.
Sure. I don't know. Sana, are you there?
She might have had some issues, faced some issues with the technical side of things. Yeah. But does anyone from the Friendzymes team want to jump in and help her talk about her presentation, which I believe of microbial media? Or we have this 5 minutes open for anyone to share their thoughts as well.
We have a massive participation, our Friendzymes. Thank you so much, guys. So, well, I think the Sana is not available to present. So no worries, we can end the session for the open innovation. I don't know, Shanghai, if you want to say anything to close in the session.
Fantastic. Does anyone want to first give a quick 5-minute talk about anything in particular? I would just want to give the opportunity to open the floor or ask any questions about the talk that were just given, since we have some time as well. And the Friendzymes team is largely here, so feel free to ask them any questions you might want to ask here.
Yeah, sure. So it has been a wonderful afternoon, been a lot of talks, moment to discuss different topics related to the importance of the open science, innovations, open access to critical resource for development and progress in the independent scientific communities, and how to scaling our biotech projects into a business, company, or enterprise. So we have a variety of sections: future tech, application, fungal biotech resource, iHealth tech, plus community, and finally, the lighting talks supporting community innovation. So we hope you enjoying this series of talks, and then they have been enriching in order to promote more questions and concerns, response, and obviously collaborations. So thank you so much, our all audience, our participants. So let's take a picture. Please turn out your camera. Thank you so much, our speakers, all panelists. You're amazing. You will possible this open innovation track with massive participation. Thank you so much, all. And so, well, turn out your cameras. Okay, well, 1, 2, 3. Biosome. Thank you so much, guys. And so we see in the finally session, in the plenary session in the nucleus rooms. And so, yeah, don't forget to join the Slack channel of the Open Innovation. Feel free to ask any questions to our panelists or wherever you want. Thank you so much.
Yeah, great. Thanks for all the panelists for being here, and of course, Sofia, for organizing all this. And I think it's a wonderful session to really learn about all these different innovations that are going on. And I think the overarching question is, how can we help each other, foster all these wonderful innovations? We have people getting new models for funding. We have people developing new ways of producing enzymes from on a global scale, right? So how can we join you guys together? And I think having these kind of bio summits is one of the best ways for you all to learn about each other's work. And now you can reach out to one another. Now you know where to get funding from, and now you know what to fund. So that's, I think, one of the most amazing things about these kind of summits, where you bring people who are doing things that are relevant to one another, yet they are not aware of one another, to come together and interact and meet. So I hope that you guys have all benefited, and I believe many of the initiatives that presented here will be able to benefit from one another. So please do connect with one another and share your experiences, talk to each other, and hopefully we'll see some really cool things spinning out from here as well. And once again, thanks Sofia for organizing all this and getting all the organizers together, and you have been a wonderful set of panelists.